Chapter 16. Yi Xing was truly enraged. He scanned Yi Hu with his eyes. Yi Xing knew exactly how Yi Hu was channeling his power, so he naturally knew how Yi Hu was going to block it. Therefore, Yi Xing changed the trajectory of his palm midway, causing Yi Hu to block the air and slap him. Crackle. When the slap landed on Yi Hu's face, Yi Xing's body exploded as he used the power of the explosive bone fist. How terrifying was the power of the explosive bone fist at the third stage of the martial path. Yi Hu's fist had been aimed at Yi Xing's face, but before it could land on Yi Xing's body, he was sent flying by Yi Xing's slap. In an instant, there was a blood-curdling scream. Blood and broken teeth flew everywhere. Yi Hu was dizzy and there was a conspicuous handprint on his face. "This slap is for my younger brother," Yi Xing shouted after the slap. Then, with another big stride, he rushed towards Yi Hu. Yi Hu landed and staggered, almost falling. Before he could stabilize his body, Yi Xing was already in front of him. At this moment, Yi Xing's head was spinning and he couldn't tell north from south. Yi Xing's second slap had already come. Slap. Yi Hu was slapped a second time. There was another blood-curdling scream and his body was sent flying again. On the other side of his face, there was also a conspicuous handprint. "This slap is for the old me," Yi Xing roared, his rage soaring to the heavens. "This slap is for the old me." After Yi Xing finished speaking, Yi Hu landed on the ground. After being slapped twice in a row, Yi Hu was completely dumbfounded. How could he stand firm? His legs went soft and he fell to the ground. Yi Xing took another step forward and kicked Yi Hu. Yi Hu was sent flying again. His body curled up like a shrimp and he let out another blood-curdling scream. Then, with a bang, Yi Hu crashed into the wall of the alley and fainted. "This kick is because you angered me," Yi Xing shouted. The anger in his heart finally dissipated a little. As a third-stage martial artist, Yi Xing knew that Yi Hu wouldn't die from this attack. He didn't look at the unconscious Yi Hu and quickly walked towards the Ye family. He didn't believe Yi Hu's story. He didn't believe that his brother would die just like that after being born. However, his rationality told him that Yi Hu wouldn't tell such a lie. He wanted to go back and verify it. Yi Xing ran all the way back to the Ye family. When he entered the Ye family residence, the people he met along the way all looked at him strangely. Moreover, there was not the slightest bit of joy in the entire Ye residence, nor were there any decorations. For the Ye family who had just given birth to their second child, this was very abnormal. This further proved that what Yi Hu said was true. However, Yi Xing still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. Soon, Yi Xing returned to the master mansion. As soon as he entered the mansion, he saw his maid, Xiaoqing. "Young master." Xiaoqing suddenly saw Yi Xing and exclaimed. She quickly walked over. "Young master, where have you been for the past half a month? The master is very angry." "Xiaoqing, tell me, how is my brother?" Yi Xing grabbed Xiaoqing's arms and asked. Yi Xing didn't care whether Yi Feihong was angry or not. However, he couldn't help but care about his brother's life and death. Xiaoqing's face revealed a sorrowful expression. "Young master, he has already passed away." Boom! Although his rationality told him that Yi Hu was telling the truth, Yi Xing's mind still buzzed when he heard Xiaoqing's confirmation. It was somewhat hard to accept. In his heart, he didn't feel any familial affection for his parents. He only felt some sentimental attachment to the original owner. As for his brother, Yi Qin, he was a true family member. However, damned heavens, I was an orphan on Earth. Now that I've come to the astral continent, I finally have a brother. Are you still going to make me an orphan? Yi Xing roared in his heart, unwilling to accept this. "Take this for me and send it to my room." Yi Xing handed a bow and a quiver full of sonic arrows to Xiaoqing, then walked toward the main hall. Yi Chen's death had touched a chord in Yixing's heart. Originally, he had his pride and his persistence. The familial affection in his heart had long been hidden, but Yi Chen's death had awakened it. Perhaps it was because of Yi Chen's death or because of the original owner's sentimental attachment, Yixing's perception of his parents had grown much closer. He understood that Yi Feihong and Louis had placed all their hopes on Yi Qin. Now that Yi Qin had passed away, their hopes had been dashed and they must be feeling terrible. Now, as their only son, or rather, as the person who had taken over their only son's body, it was only right for him to accompany them. Yi Tianchong, don't let me find any evidence. Otherwise, I'll never forgive you and your bloodline. Yi Feihong, how many times have I told you that I, Yi Tianchong, am a member of the Ye family in life and a ghost of the Ye family in death? In this lifetime, I'll never do anything to let the Ye family down. No matter how much I want Qing, to be the head of the family, I'll never do anything that would incur the wrath of men and gods. Moreover, Yi Qin wasn't the only one who was killed. Yi Fei of the Yi Yuan family was born a day later than Yi Qin, but wasn't he also assassinated on that day? Even if I have a reason to kill Yi Qin, I have no reason to kill Yi Fei. Alright, Yi Tianchong, you've finally said what's in your heart. You want Qin, to die and you want to seize the position of head of the family for your bloodline, and you're still saying that you didn't do it? Yi Feihong, you're unreasonable. I'm just saying reasons. Do you understand reasons? You're the one who killed Qin, Yi Tianchong, as an elder, don't be a coward. You're already possessed. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Yixing had just arrived outside the main hall when he heard a fierce argument coming from inside. It was his father, Yi Feihong, and the first elder, Yi Tianchong, arguing. Soon, Yixing saw the first elder, Yi Tianchong, walking out angrily. Yi Tianchong's face was red and his beard was crooked. He was obviously in a fit of anger. When he suddenly saw Yixing in front of him, he could not help but feel angry. You're a waste of food. Yi Tianchong scolded Yixing fiercely. He quickly walked past Yixing and left without looking back. Yixing clenched his fist and almost punched the old man's face. However, the other party was an elder of the family after all. He was of the same generation as his grandfather who had passed away. Yixing suppressed the urge to punch him. It was not until Yi Tianchong disappeared from sight that Yixing stepped into the main hall. Yi Feihong stood alone in the hall with his eyes wide open and panting. When he saw Yixing, the anger in his eyes burned even more fiercely. Father, I'm back. Yixing walked forward. You bastard, you still know how to die and come back. Yi Feihong was like a lion with its hair standing on end. He roared and walked toward Yixing. Walking in front of Yixing, Yi Feihong shouted again. At the same time, he slapped Yixing. Why didn't you die, you waste of food? The death of his younger brother, Yi Qin, had evoked the long-hidden affection in Yixing's heart. In addition, the original owner instinctively wanted to be closer to his parents. When Yixing returned, he decided to tell his parents about his cultivation progress. He wanted to improve their relationship. However, Yi Feihong's words caused the affection in Yixing's heart to instantly fall into an ice cave. Yixing's eyes scanned the trajectory of Yi Feihong's slap. If Yixing dodged with all his strength, he could completely avoid this slap. However, Yixing did not dodge. He stood in the same place, not moving at all. His heart was already cold. Slap, Yixing was slapped. His face was slapped to the side and he felt a burning pain. Yi Feihong's slap was not light. However, for some reason, although there was pain on his face, Yixing's heart suddenly felt much better. The original owner's instinctive wish and the abnormal father-son relationship between him and Yi Feihong were all slapped away by Yi Feihong. Yixing took this slap, but he got rid of the original owner's wish and relieved the depression in his heart. It was worth it. He originally wanted to tell Yi Feihong everything, but now there was no need to say anymore. He only needed to wait 10 days later when the clan meeting was held. He wanted to soar into the sky and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat to seize the opportunity to go to the main family of Azure Sky City. Then, he would leave Greenleaf Village without any attachment. He would wholeheartedly pursue martial arts and head towards the wider sky to explore the path of becoming a peerless expert. Your useless son is already dead. Yi Xing really wanted to say this to Yi Feihong, but he still held it in. He said indifferently, "My life is tougher." What he said was the truth. The I in his words was not referring to the Yi Xing of the past, but himself. Something happened to him on Earth, but in a place like the Star Continent, he took over someone else's body and came back to life. If this was not tough, then what was? Yi Xing's reply made Yi Feihong even more furious. However, no matter how angry he was, no matter how much he disliked this son in front of him, he was still his son. He had already slapped him once, so it was hard for him to do it a second time. Scram to the backyard and don't come out. For the next few days, I don't want to see a useless piece of trash like you wasting food. Yi Feihong took a few deep breaths, suppressed his anger, and pointed outside the hole. Yi Xing did not say anything else and turned to leave. When he returned to his residence, Xiaoqing saw the slap mark on Yi Xing's face and was shocked. "Oh, young master, you're the patriarch's only son. How could he bear to hit you? Let me apply some ointment for you." With that, she went to look for the ointment. Yi Xing held her back and said, "This injury is not a problem. First, tell me, what happened to my brother's death?" With Xiaoqing's explanation, Yi Xing finally understood the cause of Yi Chen's death. It turned out that he was secretly killed by someone. With Yi Chen's death, the one who benefited the most was the first elder's bloodline. Because Yi Xing was known to have a useless body, with the death of Yi Feihong's second child, the position of patriarch naturally could not be passed down. As for the first elder's grandson, Yi Qing, he was the most outstanding descendant of the Ya family and had the most hope to take over the position of patriarch. No wonder Yi Feihong and first elder Yi Tianqiong quarreled so fiercely. It was not without reason that Yi Feihong suspected Yi Tianqiong. However, Yi Xing could not understand why when Yi Qin was assassinated, Yi Fei, who had nothing to do with the fight for the position of patriarch, was also assassinated. Recommendation tickets, crying for recommendation tickets, crying for recommendation tickets. Brothers, I need your protection and support. Requesting recommendation tickets. Chapter 17. While Xiaoqing was applying the ointment on Yi Xing's face, Yi Hu's face was also being applied by his maid. After Yi Xing left, Yi Hu quickly woke up. Thinking about how he had been beaten up by Yi Xing, who he had always looked down on, he felt incomparably humiliated. He had no face left, and he couldn't help but cry. He didn't dare to tell anyone about this, nor did he want anyone to know. He wrapped his head in a cloth and secretly snuck home. If he had beaten up Yi Xing this time, the first thing he would have done when he got home would have been to confess to his grandfather and ask for his protection. But now, he had been beaten up by Yi Xing. If he told his grandfather, not only would Yi Tianqiong not protect him, he would even call him worse than trash and might even give him a slap. Therefore, he didn't dare to let his grandfather know about this. Other than his maid, there was only one other person who knew about his injury, and that was his brother, Yi Qing. The first thing he did when he sneaked home was not to apply the ointment, but to ask his maid to invite his brother, Yi Qing, over. Yi Qing was the same age as Yi Xing. He was also 16 years old this year, but 3 months ago, he had already cultivated internal strength and became a martial artist of the 4th stage of the martial path. He was the first in the younger generation of the Ya family. "Little Hu, are you sure it was Yi Xing who beat you up like this? Is there someone else who is secretly making a move?" Yi Qing looked at Yi Hu's appearance and felt his heart ache, but he also couldn't believe Yi Hu's words. Everyone knew that Yi Xing had a trash body, and Yi Hu was a martial disciple of the third stage of the martial path. Even if Yi Xing trained his body to the extreme, he would only be on par with a martial disciple of the third stage of the martial path. How could he beat Yi Hu to the point where he couldn't fight back? Brother, I'm 100% sure. At that time, there were only Yi Xing and me. I don't know why, but when he slapped me, I couldn't block it. Then he hit me until I was dizzy. He slapped me twice and kicked me hard. Brother, I've never been so humiliated in my life. You have to avenge me. Beat him until his mother can't recognize him. Yi Hu's eyes were filled with tears as he sobbed. Yi Xing patted Yi Hu's shoulder and said, "Little Hu, don't worry. The humiliation you suffered, I'll return it to Yi Xing 10 times over. He's just a trash body. Even if he had a fortuitous encounter and his body reached the extreme, he can only be a martial disciple for the rest of his life. He won't be able to inherit the position of the head of the family. Right now, he's just relying on the fact that his father is the head of the family. When I take over the position of the head of the family, I'll definitely teach that trash a lesson. Little Hu, when the time comes, I'll let you take care of him personally." Yi Hu's eyes emitted a resentful gaze as he said, "No, brother. I've waited too long for you to take over the position of the head of the family. Now, I want him to suffer." Yi Qing's face was unhappy as he said, "Even though he's trash, he's still the son of the head of the family. If he doesn't come out of the house, do you think I'll be able to fight my way into the house?" Yi Hu's gaze shifted as he said, "Brother, Yi Xing has the strength of the third stage of the martial path. I'm guessing that he'll definitely participate in this family meeting to show off his outstanding strength. When the time comes, you can openly beat him up during the family meeting. Ruthlessly beat him up in front of the main house's envoys and trample on his dignity. Let him have no face left and taste the feeling of being humiliated by others." Yi Qing nodded his head, "Okay. As long as he dares to participate in the family meeting, I'll definitely ruthlessly teach him a lesson." After returning to the Ye family, Yi Xing spent every day in the backyard cultivating. He didn't take a single step out of the house. The scarlet blood spirit mushroom's medicinal effects were still abundant. These days, Yi Xing's progress was remarkable. On this day, in the backyard of the house, besides Yi Xing, there was no one else. Peng, 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 Yi Xing was currently practicing the bone explosion fist. Every time he struck out, there would be a few crisp sounds. After finishing a set of bone explosion fist, Yi Xing's entire body's bones rang out. There wasn't a single muffled sound, all of them were crisp sounds. This meant that Yi Xing's 206 bones in his body were all in place. The perfect bone explosion fist had reached the realm of perfection. Yi Xing let out a long breath. The air in front of him rippled and an arrow of qi shot out over 3 meters before disappearing. Breathing out like an arrow was something only a true martial artist who had produced internal strength could do. Yi Xing had yet to produce internal strength. His flesh and blood couldn't be compared to a martial artist of the 4th stage of the martial path. However, he had a strong set of bones that far surpassed a martial artist of the 4th stage of the martial path. This allowed him to breathe out like an arrow at the 3rd stage of the martial path. Tomorrow is the day of the clan meeting. My perfect bone explosion fist has reached perfection and my cultivation has also consolidated to the late 3rd stage of the martial path. Martial disciples of the same stage are no match for me. I should be able to compete with a true martial artist, right? Yi Xing clenched his fists. He was incomparably confident in his heart. The clan meeting will be the moment when I, Yi Xing, soar to the skies. With me there, I am invincible. No one will be able to stop me from taking first place. I, Yi Xing, will definitely be among those who will head to Azure Sky City's main house. Once he thought about the fact that the main house of Azure Sky City had even higher level martial arts, Yixing's heart was filled with excitement. With the super brain, he wouldn't complain about having too many martial arts. No matter how many there were, he would be able to learn them all. He was only afraid that he wouldn't be able to learn them. And now, he had already learned the evergreen art and bone explosion fist, these two lower-level martial arts. As for other martial arts, he was thirsty for knowledge. The main house's envoy should be here today. Coming from the main house of Azure Sky City, the envoy must be an expert. Yixing guessed. Yixing's guess was right. The main house's envoy had arrived. However, if he were to see the main house's envoy, he would definitely be shocked. The main house's envoy that Yi Feihong treated with respect as an honored guest was actually a 17 or 18-year-old youth. For this clan meeting, the Greenleaf Village's branch family is honored to have the young lord make an appearance. In the main hall of the Ya family's main hall, the patriarch Yi Feihong was in the lead. Along with many other elders, they all respectfully bowed to the young man sitting in the patriarch's seat. Azure Sky City's Ya family's young lord, Yi Yunlong, was a famous genius in the entire Azure Sky City. He wasn't even 18 years old, but his cultivation had already reached the peak of the 5th stage of the martial path. Compared to many of the branch family's patriarchs, he was even stronger. Yi Yunlong was dressed in white and had a jade crown on his head. He held a fan in his hand. He was an elegant young master. Beside him was a beautiful young lady. Her hands were wrapped around a long sword. She was his sword attendant. Yi Yunlong closed the fan in his hand and said, "Everyone, there is no need to be so courteous. The Greenleaf Village's Ya family is one of the most important branch families of our Yi clan. When Elder Tian Nan was still alive, he had made great contributions to our Yi clan. Although Elder Tian Nan had passed away 3 years ago, my father still remembers him. Therefore, he specially ordered Yunlong to come to Greenleaf Village. The first reason is to select a genius from the Greenleaf Village's Ya family, hoping that there would be someone like Elder Tian Nan, strengthening our Yi clan strength." Yi Tian Nan, the previous patriarch of the Greenleaf Village's Ya family, was also Yixing's deceased grandfather. His cultivation had reached the 6th stage of the martial path. When he was alive, he was not only the patriarch of the Greenleaf Village's Ya family, he also held the position of Azure Sky City's patriarch. When Yi Tian Nan was alive, the Greenleaf Village's Ya family was extremely powerful. It was the strongest branch among the many branches of the Ya family. Now, the Greenleaf Village's Ya family had declined a lot. "Thank you, patriarch." Yi Feihong and the others' expressions were somewhat emotional as they excitedly said. Yi Tiannan was the pride of the Greenleaf Village's Ya family. Now that he had passed away 3 years ago, the patriarch still remembered to come and pay his respects. Moreover, they sent their young lord to pay his respects. This showed that the patriarch still attached great importance to the Ya family of Greenleaf Village. Tomorrow was the day of the patriarch's meeting. Naturally, today was the day to pay respects to Yi Tiannan. A group of people set out and headed towards Yi Tiannan's grave. After paying respects to Yi Tiannan, the Ya family naturally gave Yi Yunlong a generous reception. There was no need to say anything more. The next day, the Greenleaf Village's Ya family meeting was held as scheduled at the martial arts practice field. On the side of the pavilion, Yi Yunlong sat at the head of the table. Patriarch Yi Feihong and Great Elder Yi Tianchong accompanied him on his left and right. His sword servant stood behind him. The rest of the elders sat on the lower seats. The Greenleaf Village's Ya family did not have as many members as the patriarch, but they still had a few hundred people. In Yixing's generation, there were dozens of people between the ages of 13 and 17. However, there were some who were the same as Yixing. They were crippled and did not have the qualifications to participate in the patriarch's meeting. Those who were qualified to participate in the patriarch's meeting were only about 30 people. When Yixing arrived at the martial arts practice field, there were already many clansmen of the Ye family gathered here. They were all surrounding the martial arts practice field. Only the juniors who were participating in the patriarch's meeting could enter the martial arts practice field. Everyone's attention was on the martial arts practice field. No one noticed Yixing's arrival. However, when Yixing walked into the martial arts practice field, he suddenly became the focus of everyone's attention. Why did young Master Yixing also go over? Isn't he crippled? He doesn't have the qualifications to participate in the patriarch's meeting. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion around the martial arts practice field. On the side of the pavilion, Yi Feihong and the other elders of the Ye family were also attracted to Yixing when they saw him enter the stage. He's a crippled, what is he going to do? He doesn't know the rules at all. An elder angrily rebuked. It was someone from the great elder's faction. Crippled. Hearing this, Yi Yunlong also looked at Yixing and said, maybe he really is ignorant. Whose child is he? This is the young master of the patriarch's residence, the great elder said with a cold snort. Bastard, causing trouble for me and embarrassing me. Yi Feihong's expression was extremely ugly. At this moment, he wished he hadn't slapped Yixing to death with that slap. On the martial arts practice field, the younger generation of the Ye family was also stunned when they saw Yixing coming over. Many of them roared with laughter. Yixing and Yi Hu looked at each other. They were right. Yixing had indeed come to participate in the patriarch's meeting. Brother Xing, what are you doing here? Now that the patriarch's envoy is also here, you've embarrassed uncle again. Uncle will be angry. A youth who was about the same age as Yixing ran to Yixing's side and said in a low voice. This was the son of the third elder, Yi Fighting. His name was Yi Feng. He was 1 year younger than Yixing and had a better relationship with the original owner. I've already sensed the stars and stepped into the martial arts path. I'm here to participate in the patriarch's meeting, Yixing said with a slight smile. At this moment, the patriarch of the patriarch's fourth stage of the martial path, Yi Feizhou, walked over and said to Yixing in a bad mood, go go go. In front of the patriarch's envoy, do you want to throw away the patriarch's face? Hurry up and leave. I'm already at the third stage of the martial path. As a member of the Ye family, am I not allowed to participate in the patriarch's meeting? Yixing said loudly. As his voice spread out, the scene immediately became silent. Everyone's face was filled with astonishment. Even Yixing and Yi Hu were no exception. Rolling all over the floor begging for a recommendation vote. Chapter 18. Other than the maid Xiaoqing, only Yi Feihong, Lu Yi, and Lu Shuangling knew about Yixing's ability to sense the power of the stars. To be able to sense the power of the stars at the age of 16, even if he didn't have a crippled body, it wasn't something worth publicizing. Moreover, it happened to be the birth of the second child, so Yi Feihong and Lu Yi obviously didn't take this matter to heart, let alone mention it to others. And Lu Shuangling didn't take Yixing seriously at all. After the incident, she almost forgot about this trivial matter that she thought was insignificant, so of course, she didn't spread the news. Whether or not one could sense the power of the stars was something that couldn't be determined from appearance. The Ye family members all thought that Yixing was still a crippled body that couldn't sense the power of the stars. At this moment, when they suddenly heard that Yixing had stepped into the martial path, and that he was at the third level of the martial path, how could the Ye family members not be shocked to the point that their jaws dropped to the ground? In the pavilion, Yi Feihong's eyes revealed a look of shock. A month ago, Yixing had just sensed the power of the stars, so how could he have reached the third level of the martial path? If Yixing really had the cultivation of the third level of the martial path, Yi Feihong's heart couldn't help but surge. Then, wouldn't the position of the head of the family still be passed down? Although he hadn't become a true martial artist at the age of 16, and his future achievements were limited, Yixing had reached the third level of the martial path from being able to sense the stars in a short month. This made Yi Feihong's heart surge with confidence. However, when Yi Feihong thought of the slap he gave Yixing 10 days ago when he returned home, the fluctuations in his heart sank again. Yi Feihong didn't take Yixing to heart, so after slapping Yixing, he didn't think too much about it. At this moment, he realized that the father-son relationship between him and Yixing seemed to have disappeared. "Uncle Feihong, what's going on?" Yi Yunlong's voice sounded in Yi Feihong's ears. Yi Feihong looked embarrassed and said, "Young master, Yixing has already sensed the power of the stars and is not a cripple. However, I did not pay much attention to him and did not know that he has already reached the third stage of the martial path. I also do not know if what he said is true or false. Cultivating to the third stage of the martial path in a month was simply too shocking." Yi Feihong did not specifically point out that Yixing had only sensed the power of the stars a month ago. Yi Yunlong took in Yi Feihong's expression and understood in his heart. He said, "True gold fears no fire. Since he doesn't have a useless body, let him participate in the clan meeting." Since Yixing had spoken up, no one objected. They did not even need to test whether Yixing's cultivation was real. Yihu's eyes flashed with excitement. Even if Yixing was a martial disciple of the third stage of the martial path, in his opinion, it was impossible for him to be Yixing's opponent. Moreover, Yixing's strength was not bad. The chances of him encountering Yixing were very high. He was looking forward to the scene of Yixing being beaten up by his brother Yixing. The rules of the clan meeting were very simple. 2-on-2 battles. The winner would advance and the winner would be eliminated. If one could enter the top 3, they would receive a reward from the clan. Especially the reward for first place. It was said that it was a middle-grade medicinal ingredient. For a small clan like the Ya family in Greenleaf Village, a middle-grade medicinal ingredient was considered an extremely precious item. In the past, there had not been such a high reward. This time, it was the Great Elder's strong request and the support of all the elders that the clan decided to use a middle-grade medicinal ingredient as a reward. As for the Great Elder's intention, it was very obvious. With Yixing, the only true martial artist of the younger generation, participating in the clan meeting, the first place would be none other than him. Originally, there were a total of 31 people participating in the clan meeting. In the first round, Yixing was a no-rounder. However, after adding Yixing, there were exactly 32 people participating in the clan meeting. There was no no-rounder in the first round. As the brightest star of the younger generation, Yixing was naturally arranged to be in the first round. His opponent was called Yi Dan, a 17-year-old martial disciple of the third stage of the martial path. Yi Dan knew that he was not Yixing's opponent, but he still tried his best to fight. Unfortunately, there was a huge gap between the third stage of the martial path and the fourth stage of the martial path. The gap was too big. The two exchanged blows for the first time. Yi Dan was sent flying by Yixing's palm. A martial artist with inner strength, compared to a martial disciple, was too terrifying and invincible. Under the shocked and worshipful gazes of the crowd, Yixing intentionally glanced at Yixing from the corner of his eyes. With a proud smile, he left the stage. The next few battles progressed relatively quickly. Nearly half of the younger generation participating in the clan meeting were in the second stage of the martial path. In order to avoid the early elimination of the third stage of the martial path, in the first round, the second stage of the martial path opponents were all in the third stage of the martial path. Naturally, the battles progressed relatively quickly. The ninth battle was Yixing. Not long after, it was his turn. His first opponent was also a martial disciple of the second stage of the martial path. She was only 14 years old and was called Yi Ji. She was the daughter of the head deacon. The head deacon of the Ya family was the confidant of the head of the family. However, Yixi did not put Yixing in her eyes. Yixing, I have never heard of you being able to sense the power of the stars. Now that you suddenly say that you have reached the third stage of the martial path, it is really hard to believe. Yixi chuckled. Clearly, she did not believe that the former crippled body would one day have a higher cultivation than her. Yixing said indifferently, whether it is true or not, you will know once you try. Why bother guessing? Okay, I will test if it is true or not. Yixi shouted. She stretched out her jade-like palm and slapped Yixing consecutively. A crisp sound came from within her body. Low-grade martial art, consecutive palm. At the same time, she also used the power of the exploding bone fist. The exploding bone fist was a fist technique to strengthen the bones. It was not a battle technique. If it was just a competition of strength, the exploding bone fist would be enough. As a girl, Yixi was naturally weaker in terms of strength. Naturally, she would use her strengths to avoid her weaknesses and use her martial arts to win. Yixi's consecutive palm was very rough. Yixing's eyes were like torches and he was not affected at all. With a burst of sound from within his body, he punched out and hit Yixi's palm. Yixing did not even use 30% of his strength. Yixi screamed and was pushed back by Yixing's punch. She was forced to retreat more than 10 steps. The palm that collided with Yixing's fist was painful. Her entire arm was soft and she could not use any strength. In one move, Yixi was defeated. What they saw with their own eyes was more impactful than hearing Yixing say that he was in the third stage of the martial path. The Ya family was shocked. Yixing did not use any martial arts. He only used the exploding bone fist and easily defeated Yixi, who was in the second stage of the martial path. It was clear that his cultivation had reached the third stage of the martial path. The former crippled body was now a third-stage martial disciple. This kind of change was really hard to believe for the Ya family. In just 1 month, he actually reached the third stage of the martial path. How is this possible? Although Lu Shuangling was a relative of the Ya family, she was determined to be a member of the Ya family in the future. She was also one of the 32 people who participated in the family meeting. When Yixing said that his cultivation had reached the third stage of the martial path, Lu Shuangling absolutely did not believe it. But now, she had no choice but to believe it. She was extremely shocked. Fortuitous encounter. It seems that these days when he was not at home, he had a fortuitous encounter. But fortuitous encounters cannot accompany a lifetime. Without fortuitous encounters, ordinary things will remain ordinary. He definitely cannot be compared to Brother Yiqing. In the future, I still have to get closer to Brother Yiqing. Lu Shuangling said in her heart. She did not know why, but when she saw Yixing's rise, she felt as if her heart was suffocating. It was very uncomfortable. The only person present who was not shocked by Yixing's strength was probably Yi Hu. He looked at Yixing's eyes, revealing a trace of ruthlessness and expectation. Humph. I'll let you be in the limelight now. The more you are in the limelight, the more face you will lose when my brother beats you up. Yi Hu was hoping that Yixing would meet him as soon as possible. However, what he did not expect was that after the first round of the competition ended, the juniors who entered the second round drew lots. He was actually in the same group as Yixing, Yi whose face was immediately covered with a layer of cold air. Being in the same group as Yixing made him instantly think of the scene where he was slapped and kicked twice by Yixing. However, those who did not know the inside story revealed excited expressions when they heard that Yixing and Yi Hu were in the same group. Yixing and Yi Hu had a conflict, this was a well-known fact. A month ago, Yixing had been taught a lesson by Yi Hu and had competed with him in rock climbing. In the end, he lost and even injured his head. Now, Yixing's cultivation was in the third stage of the martial path, the same as Yihu's cultivation. The Ye family wanted to see just how strong Yixing was and how strong he was compared to Yihu. The elder in charge of the family meeting, Yi Feizhou, obviously knew of the Ye family's expectations. Or perhaps he also wanted to know just how strong Yixing was, so he arranged for Yixing and Yihu's battle to be in the second round. The first round was still Yixing's turn. Simply and nimbly, he defeated his opponent in one move and won another round. Soon, it was time for the second round. Yixing walked into the center of the martial arts practice field with a faint smile on his face. He looked at Yihu and waited for the latter to come up. Yihu and Yixing were both in the third stage of the martial path, and both had just stepped into the third stage of the martial path not long ago. Who was stronger? The Ye family members all widened their eyes and looked at the martial arts practice field expectantly, waiting for the battle between Yixing and Yihu. However, Yihu's actions exceeded the Ye family's expectations. He did not walk into the martial arts practice field. Instead, he took a step forward and walked out from the crowd of juniors participating in the family meeting. He said, "I admit defeat." After being beaten up by Yixing last time, Yihu's heart was already traumatized. How would he dare to fight with Yixing again? Now, Yihu was waiting for his brother Yixing to avenge him and beat up Yixing. He definitely did not dare to fight with Yixing, admit defeat. Around the martial arts practice field, there was a snort of disdain. They were looking forward to the battle between Yixing and Yihu, but in the end, Yihu directly admitted defeat. They were very unhappy. On the stage, Great Elder Yi Tianchong's face was green with anger. He had always looked down on Yixing and said more than once that Yixing was a waste of food. But now, his grandson Yihu did not dare to fight with Yihu and was looked down upon by the Ye family. What was this? Wasn't he worse than a waste? Yi Tianchong was so angry that his nose was crooked. Today is still the same as before. Tomorrow will be 2 updates a day. Brothers, please vote for me. The Archer God will definitely be a good story. I will not disappoint everyone. Chapter 19. Who is this? Admitting defeat in the face of a martial artist of the same level, isn't that too cowardly? Yi Yunlong waved the fan in his hand and said disdainfully. Beside him, the great elder Yi Tianzhong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. He wished he could dig a hole and hide in it. At this moment, Yi Feihong felt an unprecedented carefree feeling. He pointed out that Yi Hu was the grandson of the great elder. Yi Yunlong chuckled. He didn't say anything in consideration of Yi Tianzhong's face. He used to have a useless body. How did he become a martial disciple of the third level of the martial path? Could it be that the patriarch position is going to be passed down in this bloodline? No, the patriarch position should belong to my bloodline. Qing you must perform well and let the young master see your potential. Work hard to take back the patriarch position. Yi Tianzhong said in his heart. He placed all his hopes on Yi Qing. When Yi Tianzhong was young, he was the son of the Qingye village's patriarch. However, Yi Tiannan, who was of the same generation as him, was too outstanding. Even in the main family of Azure Sky City, Yi Tiannan was ranked among the top geniuses. In the end, his father passed the patriarch position to his nephew, Yi Tiannan. Yi Tianzhong had always been brooding over this matter. He wanted to take back the patriarch position. However, he couldn't compare to Yi Tiannan. His descendants couldn't compare to Yi Tiannan's descendants. When it came to the younger generation, his grandson Yi Qing was far ahead in this generation, leading the way. Only then did he finally see hope. As long as Yi Qing's performance was outstanding enough to surpass Yi Xing in all aspects, then he would put pressure on Yi Xing to imitate his father and pass the patriarch position to the most outstanding descendant. Yi Tianzhong's eyes shone as he looked at Yi Qing. Confidence gradually returned to his face. Yi Hu's admission of defeat was scoffed at by many people who weren't part of the Ya family. However, as the competition progressed, everyone's attention was diverted. 2 hours later, the second round of the competition ended and the top 8 were decided. They were Yi Qing, Yi Xing, Yi Feng, Yi Yuan, Yi Lan, Yi Xian, and Lu Shuangling. Yi Qing was the son of the eldest son of the great elder, Yi Xing was the son of the patriarch, Yi Feng was the son of the third elder, Yi Yuan was the son of the second son of the great elder, Yi Yuan was the son of the second elder, Yi Lan was the daughter of the elder Chuan Gong, Yi Xing was from a side branch, and Lu Shuangling was the niece of the matriarch. Soon, the third round of the competition began. After drawing lots, Yi Qing against Yi Yuan, Yi Xing against Yi Yuan, Yi Feng against Yi Lan, and Yi Xian against Lu Shuangling. In this round, Yi Xing was still not matched up against Yi Qing. However, his opponent was Yi Yuan, the grandson of the first elder. Yi Yuan was 15 years old this year and his cultivation had already reached the late third level of the martial path. He was much stronger than Yi Hu, who had just entered the third level of the martial path. Hearing Yi Feizhou, the host of the family meeting, announce their opponents, the Ya family members' eyes were filled with excitement. In this round, they could finally see how strong Yi Xing was. The first round was still Yi Qing's battle. He was as strong as ever. Even though his opponent was Yi Yuan, who was in the middle third level of the martial path, he was still defeated in one move. Although there was no suspense in this battle, the Ya family members were still amazed. The gap between a martial disciple and a martial artist was too big. Who could compete with Yi Qing for the first place in this family meeting? The second round, Yi Xing against Yi Yuan. Everyone's spirits were lifted. In their eyes, Yi Xing was like a cloud of fog, unable to be seen clearly. Now, it was time to see this cloud of fog clearly. Even Yi Feihong and the elders on the stage were all focused, unable to take their eyes off him. Yi Yunlong's eyes were also filled with interest. A former cripple suddenly appeared out of nowhere and unexpectedly became a martial disciple in the third level of the martial path. This was a very interesting story. He really wanted to know how this story would develop next. Yi Xing, although I don't know how you turned from a cripple to a martial disciple in the third level of the martial path, I won't be as useless as Yi Hu and admit defeat to you. I want to see how big of a storm you, who used to be a cripple, can make today. Yi Yuan walked into the martial arts arena, his body emitting a strong aura. As a late third level of the martial path, he was indeed a strong person in the martial disciple realm. Yi Xing walked in at the same time and stopped in front of Yi Yuan. He said, Yi Hu admitting defeat is a wise choice. At the edge of the martial arts arena, Yi Hu felt a burning sensation on his face. 7 sections cut. Yi Yuan didn't say anything more to Yi Xing. With a loud shout, he directly attacked. 7 sections cut, a low-grade martial art. It was a martial art palm technique with a total of 7 styles. Each style had 7 variations, for a total of 49 variations. Each variation attacked the meridians, joints, and other weak points of the body. If one was hit, even if one had a lot of strength, they would be cut off and unable to use it. Yi Yuan's palm chopped straight at Yi Xing's shoulder joint. His hand was like a large knife. Yi Xing leaned to the side and avoided Yi Yuan's attack. Yi Yuan immediately changed his move. His hand was like a knife, cutting horizontally and chopping at Yi Xing's throat. Bone explosion fist. Yi Xing's body suddenly emitted the sound of bones exploding. He punched out, directly hitting the opponent's knife. Everyone's eyes widened at this moment. 2 martial disciples at the third stage of the martial Dao were fighting. One was only using the bone-burst fist to strengthen the body, while the other was using the 7 sections slash to attack the enemy. Who was stronger and who was weaker? In everyone's hearts, they were obviously biased towards Yi Yuan. After all, martial arts were martial arts. They were specifically used to attack the enemy. There were techniques to use strength and various variations. On the other hand, the bone explosion fist was only used to strengthen the bones. It could only purely increase the strength. The result was beyond everyone's expectations. When the two fists collided, Yi Yuan's hand retracted as if it had been electrocuted. He felt that what he had chopped wasn't a fist, but a complete piece of iron. Yi Xing's hand bones were invulnerable. The 7 sections cut simply couldn't cut off the terrifying strength of Yi Xing's hand bones. Yi Yuan's hand was in pain, but Yi Xing's fist was unharmed. Taking advantage of the opponent's injury, Yi Xing shot forward and punched straight at Yi Yuan's chest. Bang! Yi Yuan screamed. His body was suddenly sent flying. He flew back a few meters before falling to the ground. His chi was interrupted by Yi Xing's punch. His hands pressed on his chest and his body curled up into a ball. He couldn't get up for a while. Whether it was the other juniors in the martial arts practice field, the audience outside the martial arts practice field, or the patriarch and elders in the pavilion, there was only one expression at this moment. Dumbfounded. 2 punches. Yi Xing actually used only 2 punches to defeat Yi Yuan in the late 3rd level of the martial path. Everyone was shocked. They couldn't believe it. Interesting. This kid actually practiced the bone explosion fist to the realm beyond perfection. Yi Yunlong's eyes also revealed a trace of surprise. If Yi Yunlong knew that Yi Xing not only practiced the bone explosion fist to the realm beyond perfection, but also refined all 206 bones in his body, he wouldn't just be a trace of surprise. He would be like the rest of the Ya family, dumbfounded. Yi Feihong looked at Yi Xing in high spirits on the martial arts practice field. He was in a daze and his heart was filled with a bitter taste. When Yi Xing said that he was already in the 3rd level of the martial path, he felt that he couldn't see through this son of his. Now, it seemed that he didn't know anything about Yi Xing. He couldn't believe that Yi Xing, who he had completely abandoned, had unknowingly grown to such a level. Great Elder Yi Tianchong frowned. Yi Xing being in the 3rd level of the martial path already shocked him. Now, Yi Xing's strength was beyond his expectations. He couldn't believe it. At the edge of the martial arts practice field, Yi Qing looked at Yi Xing with a cold glint in his eyes. Even though Yi Hu said that he was beaten by Yi Xing to the point that he couldn't fight back, it was just hearsay. He didn't see it with his own eyes. As a real martial artist, Yi Qing didn't put Yi Xing in his eyes. However, at this moment, he took Yi Xing seriously. The thought in his heart was not only to beat Yi Xing, but also to fight. As a true martial artist, Yi Qing actually burned with fighting spirit towards a martial disciple. This was something that he had never imagined before. But now, he really did burn with fighting spirit towards Yi Xing. Yi Xing left the stage and Yi Yuan was carried off. The people of the Ya family were still in shock. As for the 3rd battle between Yi Feng and Yi Lan, everyone was confused. Yi Lan was in the middle 3rd level of the martial path, while Yi Feng was in the peak 3rd level of the martial path. The two exchanged more than 10 moves and Yi Feng steadily gained the upper hand. In less than 30 moves, he defeated Yi Lan and entered the top 4. The last battle was between Yi Axan and Lu Shuangling. Many of the younger generation of the Ya family raised their spirits and showed interest. In Greenleaf Village, Lu Shuangling was definitely one of the top girls in terms of appearance. Her cultivation was also very high, reaching the peak 3rd level of the martial path. This made her extremely popular. Even the young Lord Yi Yunlong, who was sitting in the first seat of the pavilion, became more spirited when he saw Lu Shuangling enter the stage. In Azure Sky City, there were naturally girls who surpassed Lu Shuangling in terms of appearance and cultivation. However, there weren't many of them. Therefore, even in the entire Azure Sky City, Lu Shuangling was one of the top beauties. Raging Steel Fist. Piercing Flower Hand. Yi Xian's cultivation was in the late third level of the martial path. He walked the path of toughness and fierceness. His fists were wide open and full of power. He was able to rise up from the side branches and compete with the elite disciples of the main branch. Obviously, his strength wasn't weak. Lu Shuangling's cultivation was slightly higher than Yi Xian's, but she didn't dare to underestimate him. She walked the path of agility. Her hands were as fast as butterflies piercing through flowers. Yi Xian's fierce punches were all dissipated by her as if they were light brushing by her. Both of them were using low-grade martial arts. One was tough and the other was soft. It was an evenly matched contest. After exchanging more than 100 moves, the evenly matched situation between the two was broken. Yi Xian's fists were fierce and full of power. However, they couldn't last long. After 100 moves, Yi Xian's stamina had clearly decreased and he was panting. On the other hand, Lu Shuangling's moves were soft and gentle. After 100 moves, her moves were continuous and the more she fought, the stronger she became. After 130 moves, Yi Xian's attack slowed down by half a beat. Lu Shuangling continuously hit his vital points. He immediately lost his momentum and was defeated by Lu Shuangling. The top 4 of the clan meeting were decided. They were Yi Qing, Yi Xing, Yi Feng and Lu Shuangling. In the 4th round, there were only 2 battles. Soon, the results of the lots were drawn. Yi Qing against Yi Feng and Yi Xing against Lu Shuangling. Today, I'll resume 2 updates. Brothers, please vote for me. Thanks. Chapter 20. Yi Hu was very depressed. With a 50% chance, Yi Xing still did not meet Yi Qing. With Yi Xing's record of defeating Yi Xing with 2 punches, Lu Shuangling was obviously no match for him. This would let Yi Xing shine again. Yi Xing, the more glorious you are, the more miserable you will fall. Yi Hu could only comfort himself like this. When the results of the 4th round came out, everyone in the Ya family guessed the result. This round would definitely be won by Yi Qing and Yi Xing, and then the two would fight for first place in the 5th round. However, even if they guessed the result, everyone was still looking forward to this round of battle. Yi Qing and Yi Feng's battle was naturally nothing special. It was certain that Yi Qing would still crush all the way. Everyone was looking forward to the battle between Yi Xing and Lu Shuangling. The two were engaged, and everyone was happy to watch the battle between the two. Don't admit defeat later. He definitely won't bear to hurt you. Try your best to test the bottom line of his strength. When Yi Qing went on stage, he whispered to Lu Shuangling as he walked past her. Then, Yi Qing went on stage and quickly ended the battle. To deal with Yi Feng, Yi Qing used one more move, and the result was that Yi Feng was seriously injured. Lu Shuangling would eventually be defeated by Yi Xing and would fight with Yi Feng for 3rd place. Yi Qing deliberately used a ruthless move to solve this problem for Lu Shuangling. On the pavilion, 3rd Elder Yi Fighting's face was cold, and his eyes were full of anger. Yi Qing could obviously defeat Yi Feng in one move, but he deliberately used 2 moves to seriously injure Yi Feng. How could Yi Fighting not be angry when he saw his son being carried out of the martial arts arena? Unfortunately, at the family meeting, even as a family elder, he could not say much. Even if he was angry, he would be stopped by the 1st elder. Even if he was angry, he could only endure it. Involuntarily, Yi Fighting's gaze moved to Yi Xing. Yi Xing would definitely compete with Yi Qing for 1st place. If only Yi Xing could defeat Yi Qing and help Feng, or get back at him. That would be great. Yi Fighting thought to himself. However, no matter how much he wanted to see this result, it was only a thought in his heart. The gap between a martial disciple and a martial artist was too big. It was difficult to cross. A martial disciple wanted to defeat a martial artist. The hope was too slim. Yixing sensed something and looked towards the pavilion. His eyes met with Yi Fighting's. In an instant, Yixing understood the meaning in Yi Fighting's eyes and nodded. This made Yi Fighting a little dumbfounded. Yixing's eyes seemed to be saying, "Okay, I will deal with Yixing." Where did Yixing get his confidence from? Yi Fighting wondered if he had misunderstood the meaning in Yixing's eyes. Is that so? It can't be, right? It should be, right? Yi Fighting couldn't be sure, but he was looking forward to it. At this time, Yixing and Lu Shuangling had already walked into the martial arts arena. Everyone's attention fell on the two of them. You reached the third level of the martial path so quickly. It seems that you must have had a fortuitous encounter. Lu Shuangling stroked the hair in front of her forehead and made a gesture that she thought was very elegant. Her tone was gentle. In Yixing's memory, Lu Shuangling had never spoken to him in such a tone. Moreover, Yixing didn't think that Lu Shuangling wanted to start over with him. He hadn't shown any strength or potential that surpassed Yixing's. The other party was just trying to find out more details about him. Since the other party thought that he had had a fortuitous encounter, then let him think so. This would also give others an explanation as to why his cultivation rose so quickly. Yixing nodded and said faintly, "That's right. I went to the Qingyun mountain range to explore. In the end, I narrowly escaped death and accidentally obtained a medicinal herb. After eating it, my cultivation rose quickly to the third level of the martial path. A medicinal herb that could directly raise one's cultivation to the third level of the martial path. What kind of precious medicinal herb was this?" With regards to Yixing's words, everyone believed. Each and every one of them envied Yixing's luck in their hearts. At the same time, they complained, such a precious medicinal herb was wasted on him, who used to have a useless body. It was simply a reckless waste of resources. You really did rely on medicinal herbs to forcibly raise your cultivation. You also relied on medicinal herbs to strengthen your body. That's why your strength is far beyond ordinary people. You're even stronger than martial disciples of the same level. Lu Shuangling originally thought so. When Yixing admitted it, she automatically filled in the blanks and said it out loud. Maybe that's it. Yixing didn't object. After getting the answer in her heart, Lu Shuangling's expression immediately changed. No wonder you can be where you are today. It turns out that you relied on luck. But luck will eventually come to an end. With your previous aptitude, if you don't have any fortuitous encounters in the future, I'm afraid that you can only stay in this realm for the rest of your life and never become a true martial artist. Maybe. Who knows what will happen in the future? Yixing shrugged with an indifferent expression. However, this indifferent look in Lu Shuangling's eyes made her feel very hateful. She was used to Yixing being excited, agitated, and fearful in front of her. She hated Yixing's indifferent and confident expression. Let's talk about the future in the future. Let me test your true strength after your fortuitous encounter. Lu Shuangling shouted coldly and immediately used the piercing flower hands to attack Yixing. The piercing flower hands used softness to conquer hardness. It was about controlling the opponent after the attack. Lu Shuangling took the initiative to attack. Obviously, she was a little impatient. Crackle at the moment when Lu Shuangling attacked, Yixing's body suddenly exploded. A surge of momentum rose from Yixing's body. His black hair fluttered and he punched out like an angry lion. Yixing thought that Yixing would let Lu Shuangling go. Lu Shuangling also thought so, but they didn't understand Yixing. They were wrong. Let Lu Shuangling go. Why should he let her go? Yixing's punch, although the power of the bone-exploding fist did not completely burst out, but it was still 70 to 80%. It was far from what a martial disciple could contend with. Lu Shuangling's piercing flower hands paid attention to softness. However, when Yixing punched, she could not resolve this terrifying power no matter what. The palm on the fist retracted as if it was electrocuted. Yixing's fist power was too strong. Whether it was hard or soft, it was difficult to resist. While Lu Shuangling was still in shock, Yixing had already stepped forward and punched again. Piercing flower hands. Lu Shuangling used all her strength, but she could not dissolve Yixing's fist power. She could not block Yixing's punch. Yixing's fist was unstoppable. Seeing that she was about to be hit on the shoulder by Yixing's fist, Lu Shuangling's body fell back, hands on the ground, and a back flip. Shadowless leg. Lu Shuangling turned over, her feet quickly kicked, attacking Yixing's several vital points, and used a low-grade martial skill. Bang 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 bang. Yixing reacted quickly and still used the bone-exploding fist. Lu Shuangling kicked many legs, but they were all blocked by Yixing's fist. After a few sounds, Lu Shuangling screamed, her body flew out 10 meters and fell to the ground. Yixing's fist power was too heavy. After blocking a few punches, he took the initiative to punch. Naturally, he sent Lu Shuangling flying with a punch. Lu Shuangling fell to the ground, and the soles of her feet still felt waves of pain. She clenched her teeth and looked at Yixing with both anger and surprise. The Yixing in front of her made her feel unfamiliar. She could feel that Yixing did not have tender feelings for her, which was beyond her expectations. In the past, although she had never been good to Yixing, Yixing was infatuated with her. How could he bear to hurt her? However, this time, she was really injured by Yixing. Moreover, he was not able to test the bottom line of Yixing's strength. At the same time, Yixing's actions were beyond the expectations of most of the Ya family. Yixing used to be infatuated with Lu Shuangling, but now it seemed that there was a change. At the edge of the martial arts practice field, Yixing's eyes narrowed, revealing a frightening look. He wanted Lu Shuangling to test the bottom line of Yixing's strength, but he was disappointed. However, he still had the confidence to win. Although he did not know the bottom line of Yixing's strength, but, after all, he was only a martial disciple. How strong could he be? As for him, he had already cultivated the inner strength of martial arts, and there were 4-star rings in his dantian. He was a real martial artist. Yixing slowly walked out from the edge of the martial arts practice field. Lu Shuangling was defeated. Only he and Yixing would enter the 5th round, so there was no need to draw lots. The final battle of the 5th round would be between him and Yixing. Lu Shuangling was helped down. On the martial arts practice field, other than the host of the family meeting, only Yixing and Yixing were facing each other. The entire Ya family's eyes were locked on the two of them, showing a strong interest in their eyes. These two people, one was the Ya family's #1 junior, the only martial artist, and the other was once a cripple, the dark horse of this family meeting. The battle between the two of them was very interesting to watch. Even though they had already predicted the outcome, their interest in this battle didn't diminish. They wanted to know, Yixing, the dark horse, how long could he last in front of Yixing, a real martial artist? In the pavilion, when Lu Shuangling was sent flying by Yixing's punch, Yi Yunlong was slightly unhappy. In his opinion, Yixing did not know how to be gentle with women. When facing a beauty, even if he won, he should win gracefully. He opened his fan and fanned it a few times. When he saw Yixing walk into the martial arts practice field, he closed his fan and said, "Once a cripple who could not feel the stars, today a martial disciple of the 3rd stage of the martial path, Yixing, as a dark horse, has added a lot of color to this family meeting. It is unexpected, but in the end, he cannot truly defy the heavens. This time, his opponent is a real martial artist. His road to fame has come to an end." A martial disciple defeating a martial artist, although it did exist, it was very rare. Usually, only the top geniuses of Tiansang City could do it, such as Yi Yunlong. But even he, at the limit of the third stage of the martial path, started to produce inner strength in his body. He was almost half a step into the fourth stage of the martial path. It was only when the fourth star ring in his dantian was not formed that he defeated a true martial artist of the fourth stage of the martial path. Seeing Yi Yunlong standing on Yi Qing's side, Yi Tianchong's face immediately revealed a happy expression and said, reporting to the young master, "This fourth stage martial artist, Yi Qing, is this old man's eldest grandson." A few months ago, he had already become a martial artist. He is the number 1 junior of the Ye family in Qingye village, the only true martial artist. He has great potential and will definitely achieve great things in the future. When he comes to Tiansang City, I hope the young master will take care of him. Second update. The final battle is coming. Where are the recommendation votes? Please vote for 1. Chapter 21. Yi Xing, we've finally met. The humiliation you brought to little tiger, I'll return it to you tenfold. Yi Qing looked at Yi Xing in front of him and said with disdain. He, Yi Qing, with just you. Yi Qing was indifferent to Yi Xing's disdain and said with a smile. Looks like you've had a fortuitous encounter and defeated a few martial disciples of the same level. Your confidence has swelled. Yi Qing's expression was still disdainful. Is that so? Then I'll have to trouble you to wake me up. Yi Xing's expression was normal as he said with a smile. I will. I'll let you know the difference between a martial disciple and a real martial artist. Yi Qing's expression turned cold. Yi Xing's attitude made him feel suffocated and angry. Then what are you waiting for? Let's start. I also want to see if a real martial artist is my opponent. Yi Xing shrugged. Humph. Shameless boasting. Yi Qing couldn't stand it anymore. He snorted and said, at most 3 moves and I'll make you unable to get up. Great monument hand. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Qing had already made his move. He took a big step forward and slapped at Yi Xing. Before the palm arrived, the fierce wind from the palm first rushed over. There was even a whooshing sound in the air. It was obvious that this palm was very powerful. The Great Monument Hand was one of the strongest low-grade martial arts. When Yi Qing made his move, the wind from his palm was fierce and there was a whooshing sound. It was obvious that he had already practiced the Great Monument Hand to the Great Success stage. With the cultivation of the 4th stage of the martial path, the Great Monument Hand at the Great Success stage was no small matter. Humph, he thinks that with a fortuitous encounter, he can compete with brother Yi Qing. He's really overestimating himself. The difference between a martial disciple and a martial artist cannot be made up. Brother Yi Qing's Great Monument Hand is so terrifying. He doesn't even need 3 moves. 1 move can defeat Yi Xing. Some of the juniors who usually followed Yi Qing spoke one after another. They felt that Yi Xing's words were very unfair. Seeing that Yi Qing had made a move, they all began to mock Yi Xing. Although Yi Qing's inner strength is not strong and is only at the early stage of the 4th stage, it is still not something a martial disciple can contend with. Coupled with the Great Monument Hand of the Great Success stage, 3 moves is enough to defeat Yi Xing. On the stage, Yi Yunlong, who was seated at the head of the table, made this judgment. Hailing from the main family of Azure Sky City, he had learned quite a few middle-ranked martial arts, and had even learned an incomplete high-ranked martial art. His vision was high, and his judgment was convincing. Young master, you're right. Even if Yi Xing had a fortuitous encounter, how could it compare to Yi Qing's diligent and painstaking training? 3 moves are enough. Great Elder Yi Tianchong was full of smiles. Pitter-patter while the crowd was discussing, Yi Xing's body suddenly emitted an explosive sound. His aura suddenly rose, making people feel as if he was a mountain. Yixing also took a big step forward and punched out. There was nothing fancy about it. It was the bone explosion fist that everyone had practiced before. However, this punch was extremely powerful. A sharp wind blew from the fist, causing the air to emit a deep sound. Bang! While the crowd was shocked by the power of Yixing's punch, his fist and Yixing's palm had already collided. Without using any martial arts techniques, just the bone explosion fist, he wanted to contend against the great monument hand of the great success stage. Moreover, it was the great monument hand of a martial disciple with inner strength. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the confrontation in the martial arts practice field. They had already simulated the next scene in their minds. Yixing would definitely be sent flying by Yixing's great monument hand, falling far away. However, their eyes were immediately filled with shock. Yixing was not sent flying. He only took 2 steps back. However, as a true martial disciple, Yixing also took 2 steps back. In the first round of confrontation, they were actually evenly matched. How could a fist technique that strengthened the bones be able to contend against a martial technique that was used to kill the enemy? Moreover, it was under the situation where there was an absolute difference in cultivation level. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. Yi Yunlong's fan that was fanning suddenly froze in the air. Great Elder Yi Tianchong's smile suddenly froze on his face. Most of the Ya family members had their mouths agape. They were dumbfounded. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock. After being stunned for a moment, Yi Fighting's face was filled with joy. Yixing was actually able to fight against Yixing. This made him instantly understand that his understanding of Yixing's gaze was not wrong. If one were to talk about the most shocked person, it would be none other than Yixing. Yixing actually blocked his great monument hand and even forced him to take 2 steps back. This was something that he could not believe. A former cripple could actually contend with me. This is impossible. Yixing's heart was roaring. An intense anger rose within him. Great monument hand. Yixing roared angrily. The inner strength in his body was pushed to the limit. His hands were like a mountain that could split open a monument as he continued to attack Yixing bone explosion fist. Yixing did not show any signs of weakness. The bones in his body exploded like beans being fried. Both of his fists struck out and clashed with Yixing. Ping 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 ping, every time they crossed swords, both of their fists and palms would collide violently. Peng 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 sounds could be heard. Most of the spectators felt their hearts thumping. In the blink of an eye, both of them had crossed swords for more than 10 times. However, both of their bodies seemed to be made of iron. Neither of them showed any signs of fatigue, nor did they show any signs of defeat. They were still evenly matched. Until now, both of them had crossed swords for more than 3 times. Yixing said that he could defeat Yixing in 3 moves. From the looks of it, it was just an arrogant statement. It had turned into a joke. As for those juniors who said that Yixing could defeat Yixing in 1 move, they all shut their mouths. Looking at the intense battle between the 2 of them, they were so shocked that they were speechless. Yixing's eyes also revealed a rare look of surprise. His expression was also a little embarrassed. He had also judged that Yixing could defeat Yixing in 3 moves. However, Yixing had used his actions to prove that he was talking nonsense. How is this possible? How can a martial disciple of the 3rd level of the martial path compete with a martial artist with only the bone explosion fist? Yi Tianchong said with a face full of shock. He even forgot to be angry. Like Yi Tianchong, everyone in the Ya family was puzzled. A martial disciple using the bone explosion fist could fight a martial artist to a draw. This was too unbelievable. I have underestimated him. It seems that he has experienced an extraordinary fortuitous encounter. The bones in his body are clearly far more than 100. Yi Yunlong's knowledge was extraordinary. He could see some clues and said so. Young master, please enlighten me. Yi Feihong was surprised and happy. He did not understand the reason and asked Yi Yunlong for guidance. The bones in the human body are far more than the 100 bones cultivated by the bone explosion fist. I heard that there are a total of 206 bones. However, the bone explosion fist can only cultivate 100 of them. The rest of the bones cannot be cultivated by the bone explosion fist. Only by consuming some special and precious herbs can it be strengthened. Yi Yunlong, as the proud son of heaven of Tianzang City and the young master of the Yi family, obviously knew some martial arts secrets that ordinary people did not know. What? The bones cultivated by the bone explosion fist are not even half of the bones cultivated? Is there no martial arts in this world that can cultivate more bones? An elder asked in surprise. Yi Yunlong was silent for a moment. He then told them some of the martial arts secrets he knew. There is, but it is very precious. It is at least an upper-grade martial art. Even the main Ya family does not have it. I am afraid that only the major academies have it. It is said that only by cultivating all the bones in the body can one hope to become a martial saint. And the only martial art that can cultivate all the bones is a saint-grade martial art. When the Ya family heard this, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. Martial saint. Saint-grade martial art. These were too far away. To the Ya family, it was simply a legend. While Yi Yunlong was talking, Yi Xing and Yi Qing had already exchanged 20 to 30 moves. The inner strength of martial arts was indeed powerful. Even if Yi Xing used the full power of the bone explosion fist, he could only block the opponent's attack. It was difficult to use absolute strength to counterattack the opponent. Regarding this, Yi Xing was not anxious. His expression was calm. He did not rush to use the super brain's ability. Instead, he used this opportunity to train his combat experience. As for Yi Qing, his mood was the complete opposite of Yi Xing. At this moment, his face was red and the veins on his neck were bulging. He was extremely agitated and angry. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, he kept saying that he would defeat Yi Xing in 3 moves. But now, after 30 moves, Yi Xing was still alive and kicking. He did not show any signs of defeat. Yi Xing had used his actions to slap his face until it was swollen. No. How can a martial disciple fight me to a draw? This is impossible. Absolutely impossible. I will take care of him. I must take care of him. Yi Qing roared in his heart. His eyes revealed a fierce light. He decided to use his trump card. He roared, Yi Xing, do you think my strength is only this much? Now, I will let you see my true peak strength. As he roared, Yi Qing's martial arts changed. He withdrew his fist and retreated. In the blink of an eye, his leg swept out like a long whip. It broke the air and fiercely whipped towards Yi Xing. In the pavilion, the elders of the Ya family were shocked. Yi Qing's spinning leg technique was a middle-grade martial art. Moreover, looking at the power of that kick, it was obviously a middle-grade martial art at the small success stage. It was even stronger than a low-grade martial art at the large success stage. Yi Qing had only stepped into the 4th-grade martial arts for 3 months, but he had already cultivated a middle-grade martial art to the small success stage. It seemed that the great elder, Yi Qing, had given Yi Qing a lot of preferential treatment. Middle-grade martial art, mountain-crushing kick. Yi Xing felt a wave of pressure from his opponent's whip kick. The power contained within was difficult to resist. It's over. Everyone had this thought. Yi Xing's performance had indeed shocked everyone in the Ya family. However, no one believed that he could withstand Yi Qing's mountain-crushing kick. Even though Yi Fighting wanted Yi Xing to win so that he could avenge his son, Yi Qing, when he saw that Yi Qing had used a middle-grade martial art, the expression in his eyes dimmed and he lost his confidence. Super Brain. Scan. Yi Xing did not want to go head-to-head with Yi Qing again. He immediately used his trump card. In an instant, the trajectory of Yi Qing's kick, the strength of his strength, and the circulation of his inner strength were all clearly scanned by Yi Xing. There was no way to escape from all the flaws. Chapter 22. Instead of retreating, Yi Xing advanced. While everyone was still in shock, his fist landed on Yi Qing's whip kick. Yi Qing was just about to let out a victorious laugh when he felt his leg go numb. All of his strength had disappeared. The mountain-shattering kick was broken by Yi Xing at this moment. Baying under Yi Qing's shocked and incredulous gaze, Yi Xing's fist landed on the former's chest. Even a martial artist in the fourth stage of the martial path wouldn't be able to withstand the full power of the perfect bone-exploding fist. Yi Qing let out a blood-curdling scream as he was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. He flew for more than 10 meters before falling to the ground. His hands clutched his chest as he writhed and groaned, unable to get up. What was going on? The Ye family's eyes were as wide as copper bells. They were both shocked and puzzled. Even Yi Yunlong's face showed a moment of sluggishness. Yi Qing had used a middle-grade martial art and was clearly about to defeat Yi Xing. However, at that moment, Yi Xing actually blocked the mountain-shattering kick and sent Yi Qing flying with a punch. This was too unbelievable, simply inconceivable. Yi Yunlong secretly sucked in a breath of cold air and muttered in an inaudible voice, "He's only a third-stage martial artist. How could he have such eyesight to see the flaw in Yi Qing's leg technique?" As he muttered in a low voice, a beautiful figure appeared in Yi Yunlong's mind. She was a proud daughter of the heavens in celestial Azure City. Similarly, her eyesight was incomparably terrifying and she could challenge those of a higher stage. On Yi Yunlong's left and right, Yi Feihong and Yi Tianchong were incomparably shocked. However, one was pleasantly surprised and the other was furious. The result of this battle was beyond everyone's expectations. Good. Yi Fighting suddenly clapped his hands. After a short moment of shock, he was the first to react and shouted. His son, Yi Feng, had been severely injured by Yi Qing and had been carried out of the martial arts practice field. Now, Yi Qing had also been beaten by Yi Xing to the point that he couldn't even get up. This had greatly relieved the depression in his heart. How could he be so ruthless in a competition between fellow clansmen? What's so good about this? Yi Tianchong was just in the midst of his rage when he heard Yi Fighting shout. My son was injured twice as badly by Yi Qing. First elder, no matter how ruthless Yi Xing is, he can't be as ruthless as Yi Qing. Yi Fighting gave tit for tat and mocked him coldly. Yi Tianchong was speechless. He snorted angrily, his heart full of anger. He wanted to vent, but he couldn't. At this moment, Yi Qing, who was writhing in the martial arts arena, had finally caught his breath. Although his chest was still in pain, he finally got up. He couldn't believe that as a true martial artist, he would be defeated by a martial disciple. Moreover, this martial disciple used to be a cripple. He had never taken Yi Xing seriously. You lost. Yi Xing said indifferently in front of him. No. I didn't lose. Yi Qing shouted and rushed towards Yi Xing. He couldn't accept such a defeat. He couldn't accept it. Bang Yi Feizhou, who was hosting the clan meeting, couldn't stop him in time. Yi Qing had already rushed in front of Yi Xing and once again used a middle-grade martial art mountain-shattering kick. However, this time, Yi Qing was blinded by anger. Compared to the mountain-shattering kick he used in the previous battle, this move was even more flawed. From Yi Qing's rush to his kick, the changes in his strength, the circulation of his inner strength, and the trajectory of his attack were all scanned by Yixing's superbrain. This time, Yixing didn't even try to break his opponent's mountain-shattering kick. Instead, he took a step forward and dodged his opponent's attack. At the same time, the bones in his body cracked. He raised his palm and slapped his opponent fiercely. "Get lost." Yixing's kick missed. It was as if his face was in front of Yixing. Yixing slapped him. Bang! Yixing flew up again. He finally got a taste of what his brother, Yi Hu, had tasted at the hands of Yixing. Yixing didn't hold back when he attacked. Yixing's body spun 720 degrees in the air before falling to the ground. This time, Yixing's broken teeth and blood flew out together. He was beaten until his head was dizzy and he really couldn't get up. Bastard! Inside the pavilion, First Elder's eyes almost popped out of their sockets when he saw Yixing being sent flying by Yixing's slap. The rage that he had been suppressing in his heart finally exploded. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, the First Elder jumped out of the pavilion and pounced on Yixing like an eagle catching a chick. No one expected that the First Elder, as the highest elder in the family, would suddenly attack Yixing. Everyone was shocked. Even the patriarch, Yi Feihong, couldn't react in time. Whoosh! However, not everyone didn't react. The third elder, Yi Fighting, and the first elder, Yi Tianchong, jumped out of the pavilion at almost the same time. Don't vent your anger on the younger generation. Before Yi Tianchong's hand could reach Yixing, Yi Fighting had already struck out with his palm. Bang! Yi Tianchong's palm was slapped back, but Yi Fighting was pushed back 7 or 8 steps before stopping. His blood was boiling. Although Yi Fighting was half a step into the 5th stage of the martial path and his inner force was about to be refined into his flesh, he was still far from the 5th stage of the martial path. Compared to the first elder, Yi Tianchong, his strength was still a distance away. "Uncle." Yixing supported Yi Fighting and glared at Yi Tianchong. This old man didn't know how to respect himself. "You actually dared to slap Yixing in public and humiliate my grandson. This old man must teach you a lesson today." Yi Tianchong's anger had not yet subsided as he shouted angrily and was about to attack. "Enough." Yi Yunlong's voice drifted out from the top of the pavilion. "The lesson Yixing received, he only has himself to blame. Yixing is the champion of this year's clan meeting, an elite pillar of our Yi clan. He can follow me to the Azure Sky City to further his studies." Since the main clan's young master had spoken, Yi Tianchong didn't dare to be presumptuous. However, his heart was filled with unwillingness. He was so sullen that he wanted to vomit blood. Yi Yunlong continued, "Yixing is a 4th stage of the martial path. He can also go to the main clan to further his studies. Moreover, the 3rd and 4th place winners of the family meeting have also performed outstandingly. They can also go." "Thank you, young master," Yi Feihong said happily. Normally, the sub-clans would only have 2 or 3 places to go to the main clan to further their studies. For the Qingye sub-clan to have 4 places, this was obviously a joyous matter. Furthermore, Yixing had become the champion of the clan meeting, which made Yi Feihong even happier. Although he didn't treat Yixing well before, and the relationship between father and son could be said to be as thin as a cicada's wings, he knew that Yixing was a filial son. Since young, he had always wanted to be valued by him. As long as he changed his attitude towards Yixing, Yixing would definitely let bygones be bygones and listen to him. No matter how unwilling Yi Tianchong was, at this moment, he could only grit his teeth and swallow it into his stomach. He directly used the excuse of not feeling well and left early. Yixing's descendants are not trash. Yixing, you are indeed different from before. I have a whole new level of respect for you. In the future, continue to work hard and follow your grandfather's example." Yi Fighting patted Yixing's shoulder and said in high spirits. Then, he returned to the pavilion. Yixing was quickly helped down. Yixing also walked back to the edge of the martial arts practice field. Seeing Yixing walk over, the eyes of the Ya family's juniors no longer had the disdain from before. Instead, it was replaced with shock and awe. Lu Shuangling stared at Yixing in a daze. Her heart felt as if a bottle of 5 different emotions had been knocked over. In her heart, this trash of a fiancé could be said to be worthless. Therefore, she secretly dated Yixing and made plans to give up her engagement with Yixing in the future and walk together with Yixing. This was because Yixing would become the head of the Ya family in the future. She wanted to be like her aunt, Lu Yi, and become the head of the Ya family. But now, everything had changed. Yixing had been ruthlessly taught a lesson by Yixing. The strength and potential that Yixing had displayed far exceeded Yixing's. It was obvious that the position of the head of the family in the future would not be Yixing's turn. Therefore, Yixing's position in her heart plummeted in an instant. And Yixing, who she had once looked down on, became high and mighty. Fortunately, our engagement is still there. Lu Shuangling rejoiced in her heart and said to herself, "Cousin has always treated me as a treasure. Although he is angry now, as long as I pretend to be nice to him in the future, he will listen to me obediently and continue to treat me as a treasure." Thinking of this, Lu Shuangling couldn't help but smile. After the clan meeting, go to the main hall of the head of the family. Yixing walked back and said to Lu Shuangling. Then, he walked to Yifeng's side. "Brother Xing, I didn't realize before that you were so powerful. I admire you to death." Yifeng shouted exaggeratedly. Although he had been beaten by Yixing and was carried down, after treatment, he had recovered a lot. It was just that he couldn't use all his strength. He asked me out. He really didn't forget me. Not far away, Lu Shuangling's heart was blooming with joy. Soon, the 3rd and 4th places were out. After all, Yifeng was seriously injured, and Lu Shuangling's injuries were much lighter under Yixing's hands. After the battle, Lu Shuangling won the 3rd place, and Yifeng won the 4th place. The 5th to 10th places were also decided very quickly. Because this time the Ya family had 4 places to go to the main family, the family increased the rewards for the younger generation. The rewards for the top 3 remained unchanged, but the range of rewards was expanded to the top 10. Yixing won the 1st place reward, a middle-grade medicinal herb. Yixing and Lu Shuangling won the 2nd and 3rd place rewards, each receiving 2 precious lower-grade medicinal herbs. The 4th to 10th place each received a precious lower-grade medicinal herb as a reward. If the great elder Yi Tianzhong didn't leave early, when Yixing won the middle-grade medicinal herb reward, he would definitely be angry for a while. The 1st place reward was worth more than 10,000 taels of silver. It was proposed by him, and he fought hard for it. Originally, it was to reward his grandson Yixing. In the end, it was Yixing who took advantage of it. After the clan meeting ended, Yixing went to Lu Shuangling's side. However, Lu Shuangling left arrogantly and happily went to the residence of the head of the family. Yixing, on the other hand, had returned home first. He had the maid Xiaoqing prepare paper and ink, and then he wrote the word Xiao in a large font. 2 updates in a row. Brothers, please give me a recommendation vote. Thank you. Chapter 23. Congratulations Auntie, congratulations Uncle. Cousin Yixing shocked everyone at the family gathering. No one could beat him and he won 1st place. Congratulations. Shuangling knew long ago that cousin Yixing had an extraordinary aura and was definitely not an ordinary person. Today, it was proven. Cousin Yixing is really too powerful. In the Ya family's main hall, Lu Shuangling was excitedly reporting the good news to Yi Feihong and Lu Yi. Yi Feihong was there and naturally knew everything. He had already passed the stage of shock. However, Lu Yi's eyes were filled with shock. She had given birth to her second child. When she was still in the middle of the month, her youngest son died. She suffered a huge blow and had been very haggard these days. Today, when she heard such good news, her face glowed again. Xuangling, is what you said true? Xing is really already at the 3rd level of the martial path. He even defeated Yi Qin, who was at the 4th level of the martial path and won first place in the family gathering. Lu Yi still couldn't believe it and couldn't help but ask. It's true, it's absolutely true. Uncle also saw it. Cousin Yi Xing experienced an extraordinary adventure in the Azure Cloud Mountains. However, after he came back, he kept it a secret so that he could shock everyone in the Ya family today. I have to say, Cousin Yi Xing is really too evil. He deceived everyone. However, no matter what Cousin Yi Xing is like, I just like Cousin Yi Xing, hee. Lu Xuangling hugged Lu Yi's arm and said shakily. Yes, what Xuangling said is true. Xing did hide it well and deceived everyone. If he didn't show it at the family gathering today, no one would have thought that he had already reached such a stage. Yi Feihong said. Lu Yi's face glowed. She smiled and said, Good, good. Now that Xing has made a name for himself, I'm relieved. I have a descendant to inherit the position of clan head. Feihong, when I'm in the underworld, I'll finally have the face to see my father-in-law and mother-in-law. For the past few days, she had been immersed in the sadness of Yi Chen's death. Today's joy finally swept away all the sadness. Yi Feihong walked to Lu Yi's side and patted the latter's shoulder. You gave birth to a good son for me. Father and mother can't thank you enough. We won't blame you. In the past, we didn't take care of Xing too much and neglected him. From now on, we have to take care of him. I hope he won't hate us. Sigh. Lu Yi recalled that when Yi Qin was born, she had transferred Yi Xing's medicinal resources to Yi Qin. She could not help but sigh and said, in the future, make it up to Xing. Unfortunately, he's going to Tiansang City with the young master tomorrow. Speaking of Yi Qin, Lu Yi missed him dearly and the sadness in her heart was aroused. She asked, Feihong, have you found out who killed Qin? Is it related to Yi Tianchong? Yi Feihong shook his head and sighed, I misunderstood Yi Tianchong. Chen Er's death has nothing to do with him. The young master brought news that the main Ya family in Tiansang City, as well as the other branches, were all assassinated on the day Qin was born, the day before, and the day after. This matter is a big mystery, and the murderer can't be found. Lu Yi frowned and said, could it be that someone wants to go against the entire Yi clan? Maybe. Currently, the Ya family in Tiansang City is the biggest suspect. Our Ya family is prospering day by day, gradually threatening the Xiong family's position as the #1 martial arts family in Tiansang City. Yi Feihong said with a puzzled expression, but if the Xiong family wants to go against our Ya family, assassinating a few newborn babies won't help at all. It won't stop the rise of the Ya family. However, if the Xiong family didn't do it, I really can't think of any other suspects. This is a mystery. At this point, Yi Feihong waved his hand and the gloominess on his face disappeared. He said, all right, madam, Chen is gone. Don't miss him anymore. Now that Xing has made a name for himself, the heavens didn't give us a dead end. In the future, we'll treat Xing well and cultivate him to be the next patriarch. Then, we can retire with success and enjoy our old age in peace. Lu Yi nodded. The dead were gone, the concern in the heart should be for the living. As for if Yi Xing was still the old Yi Xing with a crippled body, only the heavens knew if his parents would miss him. Aunt, uncle, when we go to the main clan in Tiansang City, I will definitely take good care of cousin Yi Xing and serve him well. When cousin comes back from the main clan, his cultivation will definitely rise to another level and his strength will become even more powerful. Aunt, uncle, when the time comes, please help me and cousin Yixing host the wedding. In this life, I will only love cousin Yixing alone. I will take care of cousin Yixing for the rest of my life and grow old with him. I also want to give birth to a genius fat son for cousin Yixing to pass down the position of patriarch. When Lu Shuangling saw that Yi Feihong and Lu Yi were talking about Yixing again, she said excitedly. When Yi Feihong and Lu Yi heard Lu Shuangling's words, they were very happy. Lu Yi looked at her niece dotingly and said cheerfully, Okay. Shuangling, when you come back from the main clan in Tiansang City, your uncle and I will help you host the wedding. You can give birth to a fat son for your cousin Yixing as soon as possible, hee. At this moment, Yixing happened to come to the main hall and heard Lu Yi's words. Before he arrived, his voice floated in first. Who said I was going to marry her? When his voice fell, Yixing walked into the hall. Yixing's words were far beyond Lu Shuangling's expectations. The latter's face instantly turned pale. At the same time, Yi Feihong and Lu Yi both frowned. The anger in Yi Feihong's heart rose instinctively, and he glared angrily. However, he immediately thought that Yixing was no longer the useless person in the past, and he also needed to repair his relationship with Yixing. Therefore, Yi Feihong suppressed his anger. Although Lu Yi was not very good to Yixing in the past, at least there was no conflict. Their relationship had to be eased a little. She said, Shuangling is your fiancé. Of course you want to marry her. Otherwise, who else do you want to marry? Yixing smiled faintly and said, Fiancé. Maybe in the past, but from now on, she's not. As he spoke, Yixing stepped forward, took out a folded piece of paper and stuffed it into Lu Shuangling's hands. Cousin Yixing, I. Lu Shuangling said in a coquettish tone, but when she opened the folded paper, her face suddenly turned pale, and the coquettish words could not be said. On this piece of paper, there was a big word, divorce, written, and there was a line of small words next to it, Yixing divorces Lu Shuangling. Cousin, you actually divorced me. Lu Shuangling screamed in disbelief. Looking at the divorce letter, Yi Feihong and Lu Yi were also stunned. This marriage was between them and Lu Shuangling's late parents. It had been decided when they were young. Now, Yixing actually divorced Lu Shuangling in front of them. How is this possible? This is the marriage contract between me, your father, your uncle, and your aunt. How can you divorce Shuangling? Lu Yi trembled with anger. Lu Shuangling was her niece. She had promised her dead brother and sister-in-law to take good care of Shuangling and let Shuangling become the mistress of the Ya family in the future. I decide my own life. Since she's my fiancée, why can't I divorce her? If I want to divorce her, I'll divorce her. Yixing said calmly. You unfilial son, how dare you speak to your mother like that? Yi Feihong's anger exploded again, and he raised his hand to slap Yixing. This time, Yixing didn't just stand there and let Yi Feihong slap him. He dodged the slap and said, My good father, do you take pleasure in slapping your son? Could it be that you didn't get enough of that slap last time and want to do it again? If that's the case, then I'll let you slap me to your heart's content this time. Otherwise, when I go to Tiansang City, you won't have anywhere to hit your son. After speaking, Yixing stretched his face forward. You vile spawn. Yi Feihong raised his hand, trembling with anger, but he could not continue to slap him. After a few breaths, seeing that Yi Feihong did not make a move, Yixing cupped his fists and bowed to Yi Feihong, saying, This son thanks father for not hitting me. Since father won't hit me, then this son will take his leave. After speaking, Yixing turned and left. Cousin Yixing, don't divorce me. I'll listen to you in the future and won't make you angry anymore. Cousin, I beg you, don't divorce me. Seeing Yixing leave, Lu Shuangling immediately rushed up and hugged Yixing's arm. She knew that if she did not beg Yixing to take back his order, she would be divorced by Yixing. She would have no fate with being the mistress of the Ya family from now on. Yixing could not be bothered to say more. With a fling of his arm, Lu Shuangling could not hold on to it. He walked out in large strides. From now on, he had no more worries and stepped onto the path of becoming a peerless master, leaving behind a stalwart back view. Looking at that stalwart and unfamiliar back view, not only was Lu Shuangling sitting on the ground pale, but Yi Feihong and Lu Yi's eyes were also filled with melancholy and desolation. After all, Yixing was not a wooden man that they could call and abandon at will. By the time they realized how far the distance between them and Yixing was, it was already too late. Returning to his own residence, Yixing's mood was not the least bit uncomfortable. On the contrary, there was a kind of carefree feeling in his heart. Tomorrow, he would set off for Tianzang City to explore the wider sky. There were even more powerful martial arts waiting for him there. From now on, the wide sea relied on the fish to leap, the high sky relied on the birds to fly. As for the Ya family in Qingye village, although there was no longer any parental affection between him, Yi Feihong and Lu Yi, he started off at the starry sky. However, when he came to the starry continent, this was his starting point. It was here that he felt the stars for the first time, learned his first cultivation technique, and took his first step on the path of martial arts. Furthermore, he also obtained the opportunity to go to the main Yi clan. This place was kind to him. He was not a person who could not distinguish between gratitude and grudges. In the days to come, he would try his best to help the Ya family in Qingye village. However, that was not because he was Yi Feihong's son, but because he was not an ungrateful person. The road ahead was vast. Yixing was looking forward to becoming a peerless master. He was in a very good mood and took out the middle-grade medicinal herbs that were rewarded for the first place in the clan gathering. New book, please recommend it. Chapter 24. This was a Rehmannia ginseng, a low-grade mid-grade herb. It couldn't be compared to the scarlet lingji that Yixing had consumed before. However, as a mid-grade herb, the Rehmannia ginseng's medicinal power was far superior to low-grade herbs. It was very useful for Yixing to break through to the fourth stage of the martial path and become a true martial artist. Yixing swallowed the Rehmannia ginseng and then used the evergreen technique to refine and absorb it. With the experience of absorbing the scarlet lingji, Yixing's body's absorption of mid-grade herbs was much faster. His body was constantly strengthening. After several hours, Yixing had finally refined the surging medicinal power in his body. His cultivation had increased again, reaching the limit of the third stage of the martial path. Moreover, he could feel that there was a faint surge of energy in the 5 meridians that he had opened. It seemed to be extremely powerful. It was inner strength. To step into the fourth stage of the martial path, 4 rings in the dantian was the standard. However, before that, one had to first cultivate inner strength in the meridians. At this stage, one was practically half a step into the fourth stage of the martial path. Yixing scanned his dantian and found that the 3 rings were all shining brightly. However, the 4th ring had yet to appear. Yixing's cultivation had increased very quickly. His body was strong enough, but after all, the time was too short. The amount of astral energy he had absorbed was still lacking. If he wanted to completely step into the 4th stage of the martial path, he would still need some time. This wasn't something that could be achieved by relying on herbs. It required the absorption of astral energy. Therefore, one's own cultivation was also very important. Yixing stopped cultivating. He was in a good mood. If he were to fight with Yixing again, he wouldn't need to use the super brain to scan him. He would be able to defeat his opponent with absolute strength. Moreover, after he arrived at the Azure Sky City's main clan, it wouldn't take long for his cultivation to completely step into the fourth stage of the martial path. At that time, he would become a true martial artist and his strength would increase greatly. In Qingye Village, I, Yixing, am number 1. In Azure Sky City, I will definitely not lose to anyone. Yixing thought to himself. Young master, have you finished cultivating? Seeing that Yixing had stopped cultivating, Shaoqing walked over and said, Young master, you didn't eat anything in the afternoon. You must be hungry. Hurry up and have dinner. Yixing did not know how much time had passed during his cultivation. It was already night time, and Yixing had completely missed lunch time. On the table, little Qing had already prepared dinner. It was very sumptuous, and it could be seen that it was much better than before. Yixing did not feel hungry after absorbing the Rehmannia ginseng. He stood up and came to the table. I can't eat so much. Shaoqing, share it with me. Shaoqing immediately felt a little embarrassed and said, Young master, this is a nutritious meal that master and mistress specially ordered to be prepared for you. I don't have the fortune to eat it. Yixing flicked her head and said, I told you to eat, so don't worry and eat. Don't talk so much. Oh. Young master, then I won't be courteous. Little Qing blinked her eyes and said happily. Soon, Shaoqing added another set of cutlery. However, before she started eating, she seemed to have thought of something and said, I almost forgot. Young master, master said something to me and asked me to pass it on to you. Speak. Yixing nodded. Shaoqing said, Master said that when you go to the main family of Celestial Azure City, you must know your place and not be arrogant. Also, you must pay attention to an elder called Yi Weining. Master said that when the old master was young, he taught Yi Weining in the main family of Celestial Azure City. Later on, they both became elders of the main family, but they never got along. Master said that after the old master passed away, the Ya family of Qingye Village cannot compare to elder Yi Weining's lineage. He wants you to be careful and not cause trouble. Also, you must pay special attention to elder Yi Weining's grandson, Yi Yunkong. He is a genius of the main family's younger generation. Master wants you to not compete with him and give in to him in everything. Yixing's eyebrows twitched slightly. He said, looks like it won't be easy for me to go to Celestial Azure City. Sigh. When the first ray of sunlight broke through the horizon, 2 carriages drove out of Qingye Village's Ya family and left Qingye Village. The 2 coachmen were martial artists of the 4th level of the martial path. One came from the main Ya family and the other came from the Ya family of Qingye Village. The first carriage was extremely luxurious. Inside was the Yi family's young master, Yi Yunlong, and his sword attendant. The second carriage was relatively more ordinary but it was also more spacious. Yi Xing, Yi Feng, Yi Qing and Lu Shuangling were all in this carriage. In the second carriage, the atmosphere was a little strange. Lu Shuangling looked at Yi Xing with hidden bitterness. Yi Qing looked at Lu Shuangling with lingering feelings. However, when his gaze turned to Yi Xing, it was filled with anger. Yi Feng felt that the atmosphere in the carriage was awkward. He was clearly the one who stayed out of this, but he was actually a little nervous in his heart. He was afraid that these 3 people would quarrel in the carriage and even develop to the point of fighting. Among the 4, only Yi Xing had a normal expression. He couldn't be bothered to get entangled with Yi Qing and Lu Shuangling. He didn't care what kind of emotions they had when they looked at him. Looking at the Ya family's mansion from the back window, Yixing felt like a little bird that had flown out of its cage and into a wider sky. His mood was extremely good. Qingye Village was more than 100 li away from Celestial Azure City. Qingye Village was located in a mountainous area. The roads were not smooth and the carriage couldn't travel fast. It would take an entire day to reach Celestial Azure City. Yi Feng's worry was clearly a little excessive. Yi Qing was afraid of Yi Xing's strength. Even though he was angry in his heart, he didn't dare to provoke Yi Xing. And with Lu Shuangling ignoring him, there was nothing he could do. Although Lu Shuangling wanted to get closer to Yi Xing, she also knew of Yi Xing's intentions. She had her pride and couldn't possibly lower her face in front of Yi Feng and Yi Qing to beg Yi Xing. Therefore, Yi Xing, Yi Qing, and Lu Shuangling were all fine in the same carriage. After the initial nervousness, Yi Feng slowly calmed down and started chatting with Yi Xing beside him. The two of them were talking and laughing, leaving Yi Qing and Lu Shuangling sulking at the side. Along the way, they ate lunch in a small town. The carriage continued to slowly advance toward Celestial Azure City. The long journey also had an end. At dusk, the carriage turned out from behind a mountain peak. Not far ahead, a huge city appeared. This was Celestial Azure City. Compared to Qingye Village, it was more than 10 times bigger. The Yi clan was a first-rate power in Celestial Azure City. They occupied a large area and had a direct path out of the city. After the carriage entered Celestial Azure City, it directly arrived at the Yi clan's residence. This is Deacon Yi Weihong, a 5th-stage martial artist. He will bring you to your residence. After entering the Yi clan's residence, a deacon came to welcome them. After Yi Yunlong gave some instructions, he parted ways with Yi Xing and the rest. Yi Weihong, on the other hand, led them to another area. On the way, he gave them a show of strength. You might be geniuses in the branch clans, or you might be the son of the clan leader. You are all outstanding talents of your generation. You might be high and mighty among the younger generation, but once you reach the main clan, all of your advantages will disappear. Son of the clan leader. Genius of a region. Here, they are everywhere. The most worthless ones are the son of the patriarch. Here, you are just ordinary disciples. You have to get rid of your arrogant habits. The main family has its rules. You have to abide by the rules. If anyone dares to cause trouble and break the rules, there are plenty of ways to deal with you. Do you understand? We understand. The 4 of them didn't dare to provoke Yi Weihong and respectfully replied. In the past, the 4 of them had only heard about the main Ya family through conversations. They didn't have a direct idea. But now, they did. In Qingye Village, there were only 2 5th-stage martial artists. One was the patriarch, Yi Feihong, and the other was the grand elder, Yi Tianzhong. But in the main Ya family, a mere deacon had a 5th-stage martial artist cultivation. It could be seen that the main Ya family definitely had a lot of 5th-stage martial artists. The grand elder of the main Ya family definitely had a higher cultivation than the deacon. He was at least a 6th-stage martial artist. As for the patriarch of the main Ya family, they had heard that he was a 7th-stage martial artist. Compared to the main Ya family in Qingye Village, the main Ya family in Azure Sky City was simply a colossus. The difference in strength between them was more than 10 times. Yi Weihong brought the 4 of them to a large courtyard. The words of branch courtyard were written on the door. In the branch courtyard, there were many small courtyards. They were Qingsang Courtyard, Tianshui Courtyard, Baiyi Courtyard, etc. They were named after the town. In some of the small courtyards, the younger generation from the various towns were already living. When they saw Yi Xing and the others arrive, they stretched their heads out to look at them. Not long after, the group arrived at a small courtyard called Qingye Courtyard. It was clearly built for Qingye Village. Yi Weihong did not enter the courtyard. He stood outside and said, "Qingye Courtyard is where you will live. There are 4 rooms inside. Choose one for each of you. The necessities will be sent over soon. Today's journey is tiring, so you will rest for the night. Tomorrow morning, gather at the square in front of the branch courtyard. Don't be late. After speaking, Yi Weihong left. Yixing's group of 4 entered the courtyard and each of them chose a room. Soon, someone brought over blankets, uniforms, daily necessities, and food for the night. Yixing stayed in his room. Not long after, Yi Feng came to find him. The two of them chatted for a while. Yi Feng also talked about Yi Weining and Yi Yunkong. It was clear that Yi Fighting had something to tell him. We don't take the initiative to provoke others, but there is no need to be afraid. We just have to do what we should do. If someone really wants to bully us, then we can only fight back. We have to let them know that we are not to be trifled with. Yixing patted Yi Feng's shoulder and said. After Yi Feng left, Yixing began to practice the evergreen technique. He wanted to break through to the 4th stage of the martial path as soon as possible. At that time, even if he had to face the pride of the main tribe, he would have nothing to fear. The first night in the main tribe of Azure Sky City passed peacefully. Early the next morning, Yixing and the others had already woken up. They put on the uniform of the main tribe and went to the square in front of the branch courtyard. Sorry, because it's a fixed update, there was a mistake and the content of the chapter was wrong. I apologize to everyone. Yixing had already left Xingye village. What kind of experience would he have in Azure Sky City? A new exciting scene was about to be presented. After midnight, there will be a new update. Chapter 25. In the square outside of the branch family courtyard, there were many youths and their teens standing close to each other. There were about 200 plus people in total. Half of them were disciples of the various branch families, while the other half were disciples of other surnames that the Yi clan had recruited within the boundaries of Celestial Firmament City. If a big family clan wanted to prosper, they needed fresh blood. It didn't matter if it was a disciple of the main family or a disciple of a different surname. As long as they were talented, they were worth nurturing. Of course, the focus was still on the main family disciples. Therefore, in the Ya family, the main family disciples were the most important, followed by the branch family disciples, and lastly, the disciples of the different surname. The new disciples this time came from the branch family and the disciples of the different surname. As for the main family disciples, they had been nurtured since they were young. At the edge of the square, there were many teenagers looking at the new disciples from afar. They were all disciples of the main family and their gazes were filled with a sense of superiority. Yi Weihong stood in front of the 200 new disciples. Beside him was an old man who looked to be in his 60s. The old man gave Yixing a very dangerous feeling. Yixing was sure that ever since he came to the Starry Continent, he had never seen such a powerful martial artist. Even Yi Yunlong was much weaker compared to this old man. This old man should be in the 6th stage of the martial path. Yixing scanned him with his super brain. Indeed, he was in the 6th stage of the martial path. Juniors, from today onwards, you are officially disciples of the Yi family in Celestial Azure City. From today onwards, the glory of the Yi family is your glory and the shame of the Yi family is your shame. You must remember this, no matter what, you will always be with the Yi family. Yi Weihong said loudly, now, say it again. No matter what, we will always be with the Yi family. The juniors shouted. Too soft. Yi Weihong's voice was like thunder. No matter what, we will always be with the Yi family. The juniors shouted. Say it again. No matter what, we will always be with the Yi family. Yi Weihong finally nodded in satisfaction. Good. Remember what you said today. From today onwards, anyone who dares to harm the Yi family is your enemy. After saying that, Yi Weihong introduced the old man beside him to the juniors. This is our clan's elder Yi Weining, in charge of the new disciples' cultivation. Next, Elder Yi Weining, please speak. Yixing and Yifeng both blinked and turned to look at each other. Today could be considered their first day in the main Ya family, yet they had already met elder Yi Weining. Yi Weining was actually in charge of the cultivation of the new disciples. Yixing and Yifeng both had a bad premonition. Yixing and Yifeng merely turned their heads, but Yi Weining's eyes were already fixed on them. His gaze was as sharp as an eagle's. Yi Weining took a few steps forward and said, "First of all, this old man represents the Yi family to welcome you juniors. Second, this old man wants to warn you that no matter how great you were in the past, whether you were a dragon or a tiger, you must know your place in the main family. If you are a dragon or a tiger, you must lie down. If anyone dares to challenge my authority, this old man will give you an unforgettable memory for the rest of your life." After pausing for a bit, Yi Weining continued, "The Yi family is a large family with rules and regulations. Rewards and punishments are clear, and resources are limited. However, we have a large number of people. The rule of the Yi family is to work for the mediocre and value the elites. Next, we'll conduct the heavenly fate test. Those with 6 stars and above will be accepted as personal disciples by the elders and will be heavily nurtured. Those with 5 stars don't need to work and will cultivate every day. As for those with 4 stars, they will be assigned to different departments and have to complete their tasks. Next, we'll begin the test." As Yi Weining spoke, a deacon moved a stone and placed it on the square in front of the crowd. This stone was completely black with a groove in the middle and a row of stars engraved on the side. There were a total of 9 stars. This is the Blood Fate Stone. Starting from the left, report your name, origin, age, and cultivation. Then, drip a drop of blood into the groove in the middle of the stone to test your heaven's mandate. This is one of the criteria for your treatment." Yi Weining waved his hand and said, "Yi Yuheng, from Green Mulberry Town, 14 years old, 3rd stage of the martial path." The first youth on the left walked to the Blood Fate Stone and said loudly. He then bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood into the groove in the middle of the stone. Soon, the stars on the Blood Fate Stone began to emit a red light. 1 star, 2 stars. Finally, 5 stars lit up. Green Mulberry Town, Yi Yuheng, 5 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Yi Weihong announced Yi Yuheng's talent. Yi Yufeng, from Green Mulberry Town, 16 years old, 4th stage of the martial path. Soon, a second youth went up and dripped a drop of blood into the Blood Fate Stone. Only 4 stars lit up. Green Mulberry Town, Yi Yufeng, 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Yi Weihong announced. Sky Water Town, Yi Yidao, 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Sky Water Town, Yi Jian, 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate. 100 Justice Town, Yi Baixing, 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate. 100 Justice Town, Yi Baiyuan, 5 stars of Heaven's Mandate. The test started with the branch family disciples. Soon, there were dozens of juniors taking the test. Most of them had 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate and a few of them had 5 stars. As for those above 5 stars or below, there wasn't a single one. Thousand Bull Town, Yi Man, 6 stars of Heaven's Mandate. When the 49th youth's result came out, there was a burst of exclamations in the square. From the start of the test until now, this was the only 6 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Even Yi Weining's eyes lit up as he said, "Good, Yi Man, I want to accept you as my personal disciple. Are you willing?" Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Yi Man was overjoyed and immediately bowed to Yi Weining, "Disciple greets master." Yi Weining nodded with satisfaction and said, "Good, you don't need to participate in the rest of the test. Go back and pack your things. In the future, stay at my place and someone will take you there." Under the envious gazes of the crowd, Yi Man left. 6 stars of Heaven's Mandate, even among the main family disciples, were rare. Once they appeared, they would definitely be geniuses. This time, after Yi Man, there were no other juniors with 6 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Most of them were 4 stars of Heaven's Mandate and there were fewer 5 stars of Heaven's Mandate. Yi Xing, from Greenleaf Town, 16 years old, 3rd level of the Martial Path. Not long after, it was Yi Xing's turn. He was the first one to go up. Yi Xing didn't even drip his blood. As soon as he reported his origin, age, and cultivation, a few youths sneered. A 16-year-old 3rd level of the Martial Path, only 2 had appeared in the past. It was even rarer than 5 stars of Heaven's Mandate. His talent was really bad. As the youths sneered, Yi Xing felt a sharp gaze sweep over. It was Yi Weiniang. Whether it was the other youths or Yi Weiniang's gaze, Yi Xing was unmoved. His expression was calm as he bit his finger and dripped a drop of blood on the blood life stone. Soon, the stars on the blood life stone emitted a red light. 1 star, 2 stars, the 3rd star faintly flickered for a moment before extinguishing. 2-star Heaven's Mandate. Yi Weihong's voice was filled with shock. 1 to 3-star Heaven's Mandates were considered low-grade Heaven's Mandates. Every time the Ya family recruited a disciple, it would be hard for them to produce a 3-star Heaven's Mandate. As for 2-star Heaven's Mandate, it had never appeared before. To be able to be chosen by the main family of the Ya family, they were all geniuses in the branch families. How could they only be 2-star Heaven's Mandate? Talent was divided into 2 aspects. One was the astrology, and the other was the Heaven's Mandate. The astrology was related to the soul, and the Heaven's Mandate was related to the body. Yi Xing was speechless. His soul was his, but his body belonged to the original owner. He knew that the original owner's talent was very bad, but he didn't expect it to be this bad. Not only did he not have an astrology, he couldn't sense the stars, and even his Heaven's Mandate was only 2 stars. When Yi Weihong announced the result, the youth's sneers turned into laughter. In the previous test, the worst was only a 4-star Heaven's Mandate. A 2-star Heaven's Mandate. This was simply a piece of trash. No wonder he's only 16 years old and is only at the 3rd level of the Martial Path. How was he chosen to join the main family? Is there no one in Greenleaf Village? Many disciples from the other branch families began to ridicule. Yi Feng, Yi Qing, and Lu Shuangling were also shocked. They didn't dare to believe that Yi Xing was only a 2-star Heaven's Mandate when he performed so well in the Greenleaf Village's gathering. If this was spread back to Greenleaf Village, who would believe it? Yi Xing had a mature soul, so he didn't feel ashamed. Moreover, he didn't think that his talent was bad just because his Heaven's Mandate was low. He felt that his astrology was extraordinary, and talent was the combined potential of the Heaven's Mandate and astrology. Moreover, his cultivation speed also proved that a 2-star Heaven's Mandate was not scary. Under everyone's ridicule, Yi Xing walked back to his seat. At this time, a voice sounded, "Who is your father?" Yi Xing stopped and looked at Yi Weiniang, Yi Feihong. Yi Weiniang suddenly laughed, "So you're Yi Tiannan's grandson, ha ha ha. Yi Tiannan, Yi Tiannan, you're a 6-star Heaven's Mandate, but you actually produced a 2-star Heaven's Mandate trash. Laughable, truly laughable, ha ha ha." Seeing Yi Weiniang's savage laughter, Yi Xing asked, "Elder, is a low Heaven's Mandate trash?" Yi Weiniang didn't think that Yi Xing would dare to ask him such a question. He was stunned for a moment before he shouted, "A low Heaven's Mandate is obviously trash." Yi Xing shook his head and said, "Junior doesn't think so. Junior thinks that a low Heaven's Mandate trash." Yi Weiniang's heart felt stifled. He had a feeling that he was speechless. Even the youths who were ridiculing couldn't help but be stunned and suddenly became quiet. Humph. A 2-star Heaven's Mandate trash dares to talk about strength. At this time, a disdainful voice came from the crowd. The person who spoke was Yi Baiyuan from the Bai town's branch family. He was 16 years old and his cultivation was at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path. Among the new disciples, his cultivation was the highest. Yi Baiyuan's words were echoed by a few people. They were all 5-star Heaven's Mandate geniuses. As for the 4-star Heaven's Mandate geniuses, they all agreed with Yi Xing's words. If a low Heaven's Mandate was trash, then wouldn't they also be trash compared to 5-star Heaven's Mandate geniuses? No, of course not. Yi Xing's words hit the bottom of their hearts. A low Heaven's Mandate geniuses are trash. Some of the confident 4-star Heaven's Mandate geniuses didn't feel that they were weaker than 5-star Heaven's Mandate geniuses. In the new week, there is an urgent need for recommendation tickets. Brothers, please vote. Chapter 26. Compared to Yi Xing's test, the rest of the tests were much more ordinary and didn't cause much of a stir. Very quickly, the branch family disciples finished their tests. Other than Yi Xing, there was no other 4th-grade Heaven's Fate. However, Yi Feng, Yi Qing, and Lu Shuangling were all from Qingye village, so they were all noticed by Yi Weining. Especially Yi Feng, who was also Yi Tiannan's grandson. Yi Weining also remembered him. After the branch family disciples' test, it was time for the disciples with different surnames. In terms of quality, the disciples with different surnames were obviously worse than the branch family disciples. Among the 100 or so youths, only 2 were 5-star Heaven's Fate. The rest were mostly 4-star Heaven's Fate, and a few were 3-star Heaven's Fate. As for 2-star Heaven's Fate, there was still not a single one. Yi Xing was the only one. The Ya family's aptitude test could only measure Heaven's Fate. As for astrology, there was no such condition. Therefore, the level of aptitude was naturally determined by Heaven's Fate. After the aptitude test, it was time for the strength test. Next, there will be 2 main family disciples coming to test your strength. Let's see how many moves you can withstand under the hands of the main family disciples. Yi Weihong announced. The strength test didn't have any practical meaning to the treatment and distribution of the juniors. The real reason why the strength test was carried out was to let these new disciples be taught a lesson by the senior brothers of the main clan, so that they wouldn't be disobedient. After all, these new disciples were all top figures in their original places. It was inevitable that they would be proud and arrogant. It was necessary to kill their arrogance. After Yi Weihong finished speaking, 2 youths walked over. The one on the right was older, about 15 or 16 years old. The one on the left was younger, about 13 or 14 years old. The 2 of them swept their gaze over the branch family disciples and disciples with different surnames. Their faces were filled with obvious arrogance. When the 2 youths came closer, Yi Weihong introduced them. These 2 are the main family disciples who will be testing your strength. The one on the right is Yi Yuntao, 16 years old, and his cultivation is at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path. The one on the left is Yi Yunfan, 14 years old, and his cultivation is at the peak of the 3rd stage of the martial path. Both of them are elder Yi Weining's favorite disciples. Among the new disciples, there were some at the 3rd stage of the martial path and some at the 4th stage of the martial path. If they only used one main disciple to test their strength, then sending a disciple at the 4th stage of the martial path would be enough to crush a disciple at the 3rd stage of the martial path. It would be meaningless to send a disciple at the 3rd stage of the martial path. But if they send a disciple at the 3rd stage of the martial path, they wouldn't be able to suppress a disciple at the 4th stage of the martial path. Since Yi Weining was in charge of the cultivation of the new disciples, then the task of testing the strength of the new disciples would naturally be his disciples. Master. Second Deacon. Yi Yuntao and Yi Yunfan walked over and bowed to Yi Weining before greeting Yi Weihong. Yi Weining nodded to the two of them and then waved to Yi Yunfan. Yi Yunfan immediately walked over to Yi Weining. Yi Weining whispered a few words into Yi Yunfan's ear. He glanced at Yi Xing and Yi Feng without anyone noticing. Yi Yunfan nodded and the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a cruel smile. He also glanced at Yi Xing and Yi Feng. Yi Xing scanned the area with his eyes and saw through all of the other party's actions clearly. A smile also appeared on the corner of his mouth. Yi Feng looked a little nervous. Although he didn't see Yi Weining and Yi Yunfan's eyes and didn't know what they were talking about, he understood that it wasn't a good thing for him and Yi Xing. When Yi Weining gave the signal to start, Yi Weihong said loudly, "The strength test will now begin. Those at the fourth stage of the martial path, ask Yi Yuntao for guidance. Those at the third stage of the martial path, ask Yi Yunfan for guidance. Let's see how long you can last. Yi Yuheng, third stage of the martial path. Please enlighten me." Yi Yuheng was still the first to go up and walked in front of Yi Yunfan. "Let me give you a lesson. I'll let you know the difference between you and the main clan disciples." Yi Yunfan walked out. "Begin." Following Yi Weihong's order, Yi Yunfan immediately stretched out his finger and used the mid-level martial art, mountain-splitting palm. In just 2 moves, Yi Yuheng was sent flying by Yi Yunfan's palm. He fell to the ground and couldn't get up for a long time. Since he wanted to show his strength to the new disciples, he naturally couldn't go easy on them. The second to go up was Yi Yufeng, fourth stage of the martial path. His opponent was Yi Yuntao, fourth stage of the martial path. Yi Yufeng's situation wasn't any better than Yi Yuheng's. In just 2 moves, he was sent flying by Yi Yuntao and couldn't get up for a while. One by one, the new disciples went up. These top geniuses in their respective branch clans couldn't take more than 3 moves from Yi Yuntao and Yi Yunfan who were at the same level. There were only a few who could take 5 moves. Although Yi Yuntao and Yi Yunfan's cultivation were at the peak of the 4th and 3rd stage of the martial path, their martial arts were also a big factor. They were much stronger than the branch clan disciples. Seeing the new disciples being defeated one after another, the new disciples were shocked. There was indeed a big difference in strength between them and the main clan disciples. This show of strength was very effective. 8th move. 9th move. 10th move, Yi Baiyuan is so strong. He's the first person to last more than 10 moves. After Yi Baiyuan from Baiyi Town went up, the new disciples exclaimed. He had lasted 10 moves from Yi Yuntao and hadn't been defeated. Before this, no matter if it was Yi Yuntao or Yi Yunfan, no one had been able to last more than 10 moves. Yi Baiyuan lost to Yi Yuntao in the 15th move, but he only suffered light injuries. His face was full of joy as he glanced at the new disciples. The new disciples who went up after Yi Baiyuan were the same as the previous ones. No one could last more than 10 moves, not to mention the 15th move. Yi Xing, 3rd stage of the martial path. Please advise me, senior brother. After Yi Baiyuan, it was Yi Xing's turn. Yi Yunfan's eyes lit up as he walked out with a cruel smile. This 2-star heaven's mandate trash even dared to boast about his strength. How strong can he be? Hee. I think he won't be able to last more than 1 move. Yi Baiyuan said sarcastically when he saw Yi Xing going up. Senior brother Baiyuan's eyes are like torches. He definitely didn't see wrongly. And, he could still use his strength as an excuse when he was tested to be a 2-star martial path. Now that his strength has been tested, there's no excuse left. Yi Baiyuan's display of strength shocked the new disciples. Many of them started to flatter him. The rest of the new disciples didn't flatter Yi Baiyuan, but they agreed with Yi Baiyuan's view. Only Yi Feng, Yi Qing, and Lu Shuangling who came from Qingye village had strange expressions on their faces. While everyone was discussing, Yixing and Yi Yunfan had already started to fight. Mountain splitting palm. When Yi Weihong gave the order to start, Yi Yunfan rushed up and pressed down on Yixing's head with his palm. Yi Yunfan attacked Yixing with much more force than he had used against any of the other new disciples. Facing Yi Yunfan's full power attack, Yixing remained calm. He casually walked forward and performed the bone exploding fist, casually throwing out a punch. Bone explosion fist. When the new disciples saw this, their eyeballs fell to the ground. Yixing didn't even use any martial arts techniques. He only used the bone explosion fist to strengthen the body. How could he block Yi Yunfan's mountain-splitting palm? The mountain-splitting palm was a middle-grade martial arts technique. If there were some new disciples who weren't sure if Yixing could only take one move from Yi Yunfan, then they were sure now. However, the result was out of everyone's expectations. Bang! With a muffled sound, the fist and palm collided. Yixing's body didn't even move back half a step. On the other hand, Yi Yunfan felt a terrifying force coming towards him and couldn't help but take a step back. What? Are my eyes playing tricks on me? The new disciples couldn't believe their eyes. Some of them even rubbed their eyes. However, their eyes weren't playing tricks on them. Yi Yunfan was indeed pushed back by Yixing's punch. Not to mention the new disciples, even Yi Weihong and Yi Weining, who were seniors, were shocked. Yi Weining's face was very ugly. He snorted and said, "Didn't you eat? You don't have any strength at all." Yi Yunfan's face was flushed red. All of his previous opponents had been beaten to a pulp by him. This was the first time he had been beaten back by his opponent. He couldn't believe the result. Thinking of the task his master gave him, his eyes revealed a fierce look. Meridian separation palm. Yi Yunfan shouted and rushed towards Yixing again. The meridian separation palm he used this time was also a middle-grade martial arts technique. However, compared to the mountain-splitting palm, it was much more vicious. The person who was hit by it might have his meridians disrupted, resulting in serious consequences. Even his meridians would be broken and he would become a cripple. Yixing's face turned cold. His opponent actually used such a vicious martial arts technique. However, this was the main tribe and his opponent was a disciple of the main tribe. Although Yixing was angry, he didn't show it. Yi Yunfan's attack trajectory couldn't escape Yixing's eyes. Yixing's body flashed and dodged his opponent's meridian separation palm one by one. In Yixing's opinion, his opponent would stop after 10 moves when he couldn't hit him. 10 moves. 15 moves. 20 moves, Yi Yunfan didn't show any signs of stopping. Instead, his attacks became faster and more vicious. The new disciples were all frightened. Even though Yixing had already withstood 20 moves from Yi Yunfan, he was still ignored. Now, all the new disciples were scared out of their wits. Looking at Yi Yunfan's expression, it wasn't testing Yixing's strength. It was as if he wanted to kill Yixing. Even a clay bodhisattva would be angry. After Yixing dodged 20 moves, his opponent was still aggressive. Yixing's anger exploded. "Get lost!" Yixing shouted angrily. He exerted 70 to 80% of the strength of the bone explosion fist and punched out. In the blink of an eye, Yixing's fist and Yi Yunfan's palm collided. A scream was heard and a figure suddenly flew backwards. "Monday, please recommend me. Brothers, please support me." Chapter 27. Yixing did not move an inch from his original position. The person who was sent flying back was Yi Weining's disciple, Yi Yunfan. Other than Yi Qing, Yi Feng, and Lu Shuangling, the rest of the new disciples were shocked and dumbfounded. Yi Yunfan's strength was something the new disciples could feel. Before Yi Xing, there were dozens of branch family disciples who were at the third level of the martial path. None of them could last more than 10 moves. Most of them were defeated in 3 to 5 moves. However, such a powerful Yi Yunfan was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. The new disciples found this hard to believe. They couldn't believe their own eyes. Bang! Yi Yunfan flew for more than 10 meters before falling to the ground. He rolled a few times on the ground and rolled right at Yi Weining's feet. At the side, Yi Yuntao was stunned on the spot and couldn't help rubbing his eyes. Yi Weining looked at Yi Yunfan at his feet. His old face was as gloomy as a dark cloud and his eyes were burning with anger. He specifically told Yi Yunfan to take care of Yi Xing and Yi Feng when he met them from Qingye village. In the end, Yi Xing was not hurt at all by Yi Yunfan while Yi Yunfan was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch to Yi Weining's feet. What was this? This was simply asking for Yi Weining's face. However, Yi Weining could not do anything. This was a test of Yi Xing's strength. Yi Yunfan was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. This only proved that Yi Xing was strong and Yi Yunfan was not qualified to test Yi Xing's strength. Junior thinks that those who are weak are the real trash. Yi Weining recalled what Yi Xing said not long ago and his face was as gloomy as water. He had thought that Yi Xing, a 2-star Heavenly Fate Realm cultivator, was trash, but Yi Xing had used his actions to prove that his disciple was the real trash. Yi Yunfan's palm was in pain and his injuries were not healed. Seeing Yi Weining's gloomy face, his face swelled up like a pig's liver. Yi Xing, I'm going to cripple you. Yi Yunfan felt Yi Weining's anger and was shocked. He blamed everything on Yi Xing. He got up and shouted, then rushed towards Yi Xing again. Stop! Yi Weining shouted coldly. What kind of eyesight did he have? Earlier, Yi Xing had been dodging, but when he counterattacked, he sent Yi Xing flying with a punch. He could already tell that Yi Xing's strength was far beyond that of a martial disciple. If Yi Yunfan charged forward again, there would only be one result. He would be knocked down by Yi Xing for the second time, humiliating himself and embarrassing himself. Yi Yunfan didn't dare to disobey Yi Weining's words. Yi Weining shouted angrily, "You're not even as good as trash. Get lost." Yi Yunfan looked at Yi Xing with resentment, then stepped aside without saying anything. Elder, what do you think of my strength as a 2-star martial disciple? Yi Xing smiled and asked Yi Weining. He looked at Yi Weining's expression and knew that this was not the end. This old man would not let him go so easily. Since that was the case, Yi Xing didn't need to act like a grandson in front of him. When it was time to speak, he would speak and slap his old face until it was swollen. Yi Weining snorted and said, "Looks like you're very confident in your strength. Then let Yuntao give you some pointers." Yi Yuntao. Yi Yuntao took a step forward with a fierce look in his eyes. "Disciple is here." Yi Weining said, "Teach this arrogant brat a lesson. Let him deeply experience the strength of a main clan disciple." Understood. Yi Yuntao laughed and walked towards Yi Xing. On the way, he nodded to Yi Yunfan, "Junior brother Yunfan, I will teach this brat a lesson." As a martial artist at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path, even if Yi Xing's strength was above that of a martial disciple, it was still nothing in Yi Yuntao's eyes. Yi Yuntao's laughter was filled with disdain. He looked at Yi Xing as if he was nothing. All the new disciples were silent. Yi Yuntao, who was at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path, was going to teach Yi Xing a lesson. In their opinion, Yi Xing would definitely be ruthlessly taught a lesson. Even if Yi Qing, Yi Feng, and Lu Shuangling knew that Yi Xing's strength was extremely strong, they didn't think that Yi Xing was Yi Yuntao's opponent. After all, when Yi Xing defeated Yi Qing, he was only at the early 4th stage of the martial path. On the other hand, Yi Yuntao was at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path. If Yi Qing and Yi Yuntao were to duel, it would definitely be difficult for him to last more than 2 moves. The three of them had different expressions. Yi Feng was worried about Yi Xing and had a nervous expression. Yi Qing and Lu Shuangling, on the other hand, were looking forward to Yi Xing being taught a lesson. They were gloating over Yi Xing's misfortune. Yi Baiyuan was also gloating over Yi Yuntao's misfortune. Previously, he had belittled Yi Xing and even boasted that Yi Xing could only take 1 move from Yi Yuntao. In the end, he was slapped in the face by Yi Xing. Now, he was happy to see the scene of Yi Xing being taught a lesson by Yi Yuntao. Hee, some people actually dared to injure a main clan disciple. They are too arrogant. They deserve to be taught a lesson. Yi Baiyuan's sarcastic remarks were particularly obvious in the silence of the new disciples. Yi Yuntao had a smile on his face. He was very pleased with Yi Baiyuan's words. He circulated the internal strength in his meridians and completely revealed his cultivation of the peak 4th stage of the martial path. With an incomparably surging momentum, he crushed Yi Xing. Even the new disciples who were more than 20 meters behind Yi Xing felt as if a mountain had been turned upside down when they saw Yi Yuntao. It was easy to imagine how much pressure Yi Xing, who was at the front, was under. However, Yi Xing stood as straight as a javelin. He was like a real mountain. No matter how the storm came, he would remain unmoved like a mountain. Yi Xing's expression was calm. Yi Yuntao's pressure had no effect on him. Seeing that Yi Xing did not panic under his pressure, Yi Yuntao's face showed displeasure. He coldly snorted and rushed in front of Yi Xing in a few steps. He waved his fist and punched. Middle-level martial skill, Roaring Tiger Fist. The fist pierced through the air and produced a muffled sound like a tiger's roar. Yi Yuntao's whole person was like a tiger that had been released from its cage. His expression was powerful as he used the essence of the Roaring Tiger Fist. Yi Yuntao's mastery of mid-level martial skills was much higher than Yi Yunfan's. His Roaring Tiger Fist had already surpassed the minor completion stage. When a martial artist of the peak 4th stage of the martial path used a Roaring Tiger Fist that surpassed the minor completion stage, its power was definitely not to be underestimated. It was much more terrifying than a real tiger's pounce. While the new disciples were wondering how Yi Xing would block this punch, or imagining what would happen to Yi Xing had already made his move. Crackle crackle, Yi Xing's bones made a series of crackling sounds. It was unknown how many crackling sounds there were, but in short, it was very, very many. What bone explosion fist! The new disciples were dumbfounded. At this point, Yi Xing still did not use any martial skills. Underestimating a martial artist of the peak 4th stage of the martial path was simply courting death. Even Yi Yuntao himself could not help but be surprised. Yi Xing dared to use the bone explosion fist to deal with him. But then he was happy. This was even better. He wanted to break Yi Xing's arm with one punch and send Yi Xing flying far away. After Yi Xing fell, he would never be able to get up again. Bang! In the blink of an eye, the two fists collided. Both of them felt the terrible power from the other's fist. However, both of them were as immovable as a mountain and did not retreat half a step. Yi Xing used the full power of the bone explosion fist and even used the small amount of internal strength in his meridians. How amazing was his strength! Even if it was a Roaring Tiger Fist that surpassed the small success stage, it would not be able to suppress him. Yi Xing blocked Yi Yuntao's fist and in the next moment, took the initiative to attack. With the sound of his bones exploding, his fist went straight for Yi Yuntao's face. The scene before their eyes left everyone dumbfounded. Many people even looked at their eyes to see if they were hallucinating because the scene in front of them was too unbelievable. Yi Yuntao was even more shocked. The scene in front of him was completely different from what he had expected. If not for his quick reaction, he would have been hit in the nose by Yi Xing's fist. Bang 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 bang! Yi Yuntao blocked Yi Xing's fist with one fist and then repeatedly used the roaring tiger fist to attack Yi Xing. However, all of them were blocked by Yi Xing's bone explosion fist. The four fists continuously collided and the muffled sound continued. In the blink of an eye, the two had already exchanged 10 fists. The two fists collided and engaged in an absolute confrontation of strength. However, the result was unbelievable to everyone. Yi Xing, who was at the third level of the martial path, was actually able to fight against Yi Yuntao, who was at the peak of the fourth level of the martial path. Yi Xing's cultivation was already at the peak of the third level of the martial path. In his meridians, there was already internal strength. Just a little bit more and he would be able to step into the fourth level of the martial path. His strength was much stronger than at the Greenleaf Village clan meeting. Even though Yi Yuntao's strength was far superior to Yi Qing's, Yi Xing could still engage in an absolute confrontation of strength without fear. There was a burst of gasps and exclamations from the new disciples. Whether it was Yi Feng who was worried for Yi Xing, or Yi Qing, Lu Shuangling, Yi Baiyuan, or the other new disciples, the scene in front of them shocked them. Even the main family disciples who were watching from afar at the edge of the square were shocked. Many of them were dumbfounded. Yi Yunfan, who was previously injured by Yi Xing, was petrified when he saw that Yi Xing was able to fight with Yi Yuntao without being at a disadvantage. Yi Yunfan had been looking for excuses for his previous defeat. He believed that he was definitely not weaker than Yi Xing. But now, it seemed that he was not only weaker than Yi Xing. Their strength was not even on the same level. Yi Weining's face was gloomy. Although there was no change in his appearance, his heart was bursting with anger. He was an elder of the main family and was at the 6th level of the martial path. However, when he wanted to deal with a new disciple, he couldn't do it. Other than when he fought with Yi Tianan in his youth, when had he ever been so sullen? Soon, Yi Xing and Yi Yuntao had exchanged more than 10 moves. The two were still evenly matched. Based on the current situation, it would be difficult to determine the winner after another 10 moves. Yi Xing's mouth revealed a faint smile. He was clear about Yi Yuntao's strength. He didn't want to delay any longer. He immediately activated the super brain scanning mode. Yi Yuntao's figure was swept into the super brain. To Yi Xing, there were no secrets about Yi Yuntao's body. Please recommend, please click, please comment, please reward. Slap 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 slap. Brothers, please support me. Chapter 28. Yi Xing's super brain scanned Yi Yuntao's energy flow, internal energy flow, flesh, tendons, and bones reaction. Based on these changes, the super brain instantly calculated Yi Yuntao's follow-up attack trajectory, strength, and weakness. Yi Yuntao's strength was already on par with Yi Xing. Now that Yi Xing knew his every move and even his weakness, how could he be a match for Yi Xing? Yi Xing no longer fought Yi Yuntao head-on. Instead, he dodged the latter's fists while his fists penetrated the latter's defense and counterattacked. Yi Yuntao was very depressed. He had already used all his strength and his punches were at their maximum speed. However, Yi Xing did not use his fists to block his attacks. Instead, he used his body to dodge them. No matter how fast his punches were, Yi Xing's body seemed to be prepared for them. He dodged to the side almost at the same time, causing his roaring tiger fist to hit empty air. On the other hand, Yi Xing's bone explosion fist was ferocious. In just a few moves, it broke through Yi Yuntao's defense and landed a punch on the latter's chest. Yi Yuntao was sent flying by Yi Xing's punch. His situation was even worse than Yi Yunfan's. He flew for more than 10 meters before falling to the ground. Yi Xing calculated the distance and strength. Yi Yuntao rolled a few times on the ground and coincidentally rolled in front of Yi Weining's feet. This was equivalent to giving Yi Weining a hard slap in the face. Yi Yuntao's chest was hit by Yi Xing's punch. His breathing was interrupted. He held his chest tightly with a pained expression. He would not be able to recover for at least 3 to 5 breaths. Looking at Yi Yuntao lying in front of his feet, Yi Weining's veins were bulging on his neck. His hands and his sleeves were trembling with anger. Because he hated Yi Xing, he specially ordered his disciples to teach Yi Feng and Yi Xing a lesson. However, in the end, his 2 disciples were taught a lesson by Yi Xing. However, even though Yi Yunfan and Yi Yuntao had been dealt with by Yi Xing, Yi Weining was filled with anger, but he could not vent it. He was an elder of the main clan. Could it be that he had to personally take action and fight with a junior disciple? He couldn't afford to lose face like this. And then find an even more powerful main clan disciple to teach Yi Xing a lesson. So what? Yi Xing was already in the limelight. If he were to fight against a main family disciple who was stronger than Yi Xing, it would be natural for him to lose. But if he won, it would only increase Yi Xing's momentum. This was not worth it. In fact, when Yi Weining asked Yi Yuntao to teach Yi Xing a lesson, he was already facing such a situation. Yi Yuntao was a martial artist at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path. If Yi Xing lost to him, it wouldn't damage his reputation. But if Yi Xing won, it would be a heaven-defying battle record. It would become a glorious event in his life. Now, Yi Weining regretted it. If he knew that Yi Xing was stronger than Yi Yuntao, he wouldn't have used his disciple as a stepping stone for Yi Xing. To encourage Yi Xing's momentum. Elder, is my strength of a 2-star heaven's mandate enough? Yi Xing said with a smile as he chased after Yi Weining to give him a slap in the face. At this time, Yi Yunfan, who had recovered from his shock, quickly ran over and helped Yi Yuntao up. Yi Weining looked at the 2 injured disciples in front of him and listened to Yi Xing's words. The corner of his eyes couldn't help but twitch. In the end, in order to show the bearing of an elder, he could only suppress the anger in his heart and maintain a balanced tone. Your strength is not bad, especially your strength. A normal martial artist wouldn't have such strength. It seems like you were born with divine strength. The cafeteria needs a talent like you. You will be assigned to the cafeteria and be responsible for fetching water. How could Yi Weining not see that the reason Yi Xing's strength was so strong was because he had cultivated more than 100 bones? He must have had some fortuitous encounter and used some precious medicine to strengthen his bones. He wasn't born with divine strength. However, he insisted on throwing Yi Xing to the cafeteria to fetch water. That was the worst job in the Yi clan. Thank you, elder. Yi Xing smiled as he bowed and walked back. Last night, he stayed in the Yi clan for a night. Among the necessities sent by the main clan, there was an introduction booklet for new disciples. It described the various departments of the Yi clan, various jobs, and various benefits. No matter which department, what job, or the level of benefits, the benefits for learning martial arts were the same. Once you entered the main clan, you would be able to learn mid-grade martial arts. Once you reached the 4th stage of the martial path, you would be rewarded with a mid-grade medicine as a reward. You would also be able to enter the martial pavilion to learn martial arts secret manuals for 2 hours. Moreover, no matter how high your aptitude was, as long as you reached the 5th stage of the martial path or defeated an elite disciple of the 5th stage of the martial path, you would be promoted to the ranks of the elite disciples and enjoy the best treatment. To Yi Xing, his first goal in coming to the Yi clan was to learn martial arts of a higher level. Everything else was not a problem. His goal was to become a martial saint and become a peerless expert. His goal was definitely not to stay in the Yi clan or Azure Sky City. His future lay in a broader sky. Therefore, Yi Xing didn't care what kind of job was assigned to him. Yi Yuntao and Yi Yunfan were both beaten up by Yi Xing. They had lost their image as the main house disciples. As long as Yi Xing was there, no matter how many new disciples they defeated, they would not be able to change their image. Therefore, Yixing did not have to go through the strength test for the new disciples. Instead, he began to arrange their jobs. The new disciples behind Yixing managed to avoid being taught a lesson by the main clan disciples. Yi Yuheng, Martial Arts Hall. Cultivate. Yi Yufeng, Medicine Hall. Cultivate. Yi Baixing, Starsilver Hall. Mine. Yi Baiyuan, Martial Arts Hall. Cultivate. Yi Qing, Martial Arts Hall. Cultivate. Lu Shuangling, Medicine Hall. Cultivate. Yi Feng, Canteen. Chop firewood. Not long after, Yi Weining assigned the new disciples their jobs. The 5-star Heaven's mandate didn't need to work and could directly enter the martial arts hall to cultivate. The rest of the people had their own jobs and could only cultivate after completing their daily tasks. As Yixing's grandson, Yi Feng was very honored to be assigned the job of chopping firewood in the canteen. This was comparable to Yixing's job of fetching water in the canteen. After Yi Weining assigned the new disciples their jobs, Yi Weihong made a concluding statement: "There are many people in the Yi clan, so work is necessary. Some jobs are easier and some are more tiring. This is normal. Your jobs were assigned by Elder Yi Weining according to your potential. It is fair and just." Yi Weihong's words were sincere and earnest. For the sake of the Yi clan strength, those with lower aptitudes need to work hard so that those with higher aptitudes can cultivate wholeheartedly. Therefore, if you feel that your job is not good, don't be resentful. There are still opportunities for you. If your cultivation reaches the 5th stage of the martial path, or if you defeat a disciple of the 5th stage of the martial path, you will be promoted to an elite disciple and enjoy the best treatment. If you don't shine, it is not because the Yi clan is unwilling to nurture you, but because you are not made for it. After a long speech, Commander Yi finally talked about the topic that interested Yixing. Next, I'll teach you the Yi clan's middle-tier cultivation method, Xianqin technique. Xianqin technique is one of the top middle-tier cultivation methods. It can be used to open up 6 meridians. It's much faster than the lower-tier cultivation methods and middle-tier cultivation methods that you've learned before. Now, a copy of the Xianqin skill will be given to you. You have 2 hours to study it here and memorize it carefully. You are not allowed to copy it, and you are not allowed to take it away. You only have 2 hours. After 2 hours, we will collect the copy of the skill. A new disciple asked, 2 hours, what if we can't memorize it? Yi Weihong said, from now on the 1st, 11th, and 21st of every month, there will be lessons from the elder. If you can't memorize it or don't understand it, you can ask the elder for guidance. A faint smile appeared on Yixing's face. 2 hours. To him, it only took half an hour. No matter how complicated the Xianqin method was, he could memorize it from beginning to end without missing a word. Soon, the deacons handed out copies of the Xianqin method to everyone. Branch family disciples could not learn a high-rank cultivation method like the Xianqin method. Even if they could learn a middle-rank cultivation method, it would be incomplete and would not be able to open 6 meridians. As for the disciples of other clans, their conditions were even worse. They had never seen such a high-rank cultivation method before. Therefore, when the copy of the Xianqin method was given to the new disciples, they all buried their heads in studying it. Yixing was the only one who was calm. His super brain activated scanning mode. Every time he flipped a page, the content would be scanned into his super brain. It would always be there and would never be forgotten. In less than 15 minutes, Yixing finished reading the entire manual on Xianqin martial art. The superbrain's powerful ability allowed him to understand the cultivation knowledge of Xianqin martial art. He projected a human projection and continued making deductions based on the cultivation method of Xianqin martial art. Soon, the 7th meridian appeared in the perfected version of the Xianqin method. The 8th meridian, the 9th meridian. The cultivation method of the Xianqing method was very complicated and profound. It was indeed extraordinary. The superbrain study soon reached the 10th meridian. Only when the 10th meridian reached 100% did he stop. The Ya family's Xianqing method could only be cultivated by opening 6 meridians. It was one more meridian than his perfected evergreen method. However, Yixing's perfected version of the Xianqing method could open a total of 10 meridians. Compared to the original Xianqing method, it was definitely more than 10 times faster. It was a huge improvement. A cultivation method that could open 10 meridians had already surpassed the category of a middle-grade cultivation method. It was considered good even among the high-grade cultivation methods. In Celestial Azure City, there were fragments of high-grade cultivation methods. However, there was no complete high-grade cultivation method. Yixing was the only person in the entire Celestial Azure City who could cultivate a complete high-grade cultivation method. Although his heavenly fate was only 2 stars, he could feel that his astrology was extraordinary. Therefore, in Celestial Azure City, his cultivation speed would definitely not be slower than others. In fact, it would be faster by a lot. Yixing tried to cultivate the perfected version of the Xianqing method. In an instant, the surging power of the stars enveloped him. His 10 meridians absorbed the power of the stars at an unbelievable speed. In just a few breaths' time, Yixing could feel a faint shadow outside the 3rd ring in his dantian. The day of Yixing's rise in Celestial Azure City is not far away. Requesting for recommendation votes. Chapter 29. Yixing was overjoyed. This was the prelude to entering the 4th stage of the martial path. The complete Xianqing method was indeed worthy of being a high-grade cultivation method. Originally, in Yixing's estimation, even if he learned a middle-grade cultivation method from the main clan, he would still need at least 10 days to absorb enough power from the stars to become a true martial artist. Now it seemed that he would only need 2 or 3 days at most. Yixing's lips curled into a faint smile. After entering the 4th stage of the martial path, he would be qualified to enter the martial pavilion and learn martial arts for 2 hours. With his super brain scan, he would be able to learn at least 10 martial arts in 2 hours. Now Yixing's biggest shortcoming was martial arts. Although the perfect bone exploding fist was very powerful, it was not a martial art. It only strengthened his bones and laid a perfect foundation. Yixing was very clear that although he could use the bone-exploding fist to fight against a peak 4th-stage martial artist, it was limited to martial artists who had not practiced any body-refining techniques. Martial artists who had practiced body-refining techniques were much stronger than normal martial artists. Yixing was still unable to fight against them. Even after entering the 4th stage of the martial path, he was not 100% sure that he could suppress them. Moreover, Yixing had another shortcoming. His speed was not as fast as a true martial artist. Whether it was Yi Yuntao or Yi Yunfan, their movement techniques were not good enough. Therefore, after scanning with his super brain, Yixing could easily dodge their attacks. However, if the opponent's speed reached a certain level, even if Yixing could scan the opponent's attack trajectory in advance, he might not be able to react or dodge it. Therefore, one was a martial arts technique, and the other was a movement technique. These were both things that Yixing lacked. In the Yi clan's martial pavilion, there were many low-grade and middle-grade martial arts. Most of them were martial arts techniques, followed by movement techniques. For Yixing, this was a huge treasure. Step into the 4th stage of the martial path as soon as possible and enter the martial pavilion to study. This is the first step to my rise in the main clan. Yixing thought to himself. After cultivating for a while, Yixing stopped and continued to read and think about the Xianqing skill. When cultivating, there would be fluctuations in the power of the stars, which could be sensed by other martial artists. The time to learn the Xianqin martial art was only 2 hours. If Yixing used it all on cultivation, it would be abnormal. Yixing's ability to learn things quickly was related to the superbrain. He did not want to stand out and be noticed by others. Once he returned to his place, he would have plenty of time to train. 2 hours later, Yi Weihong had people collect the copies of the Xianqin method from the hands of the new disciples. Most of the new disciples had a reluctant look on their faces. For them, 2 hours was not enough to memorize the entire Xianqin method, let alone fully understand it. After collecting the copies of the Xianqin method from the hands of the new disciples, Yi Weihong said, "I know how you feel right now. You can't wait to hold the Xianqin method in your hands all the time and comprehend it thoroughly. This is obviously a wonderful idea, but if you want to obtain it, you have to contribute to the clan. These 2 hours are free for you. If you want to continue reading, you have to exchange for contribution points. For every 2 contribution points, you can read any low-grade martial art for 2 hours. For every 10 contribution points, you can read any middle-grade martial art for 2 hours. As for how to earn contribution points, you have all the information in the manual. Take a good look. From tomorrow onwards, go to your posts and work. No mistakes. Dismissed." The new disciples had all read the manual, so they knew how to earn contribution points. The disciples of the drill hall would earn 3 contribution points for a day of cultivation. The disciples of the Starsabil Hall and the Botany Hall would earn 2 contribution points for a day of work. The rest of the disciples would earn 1 contribution point for a day of work. Not only could the disciples of the drill hall cultivate all day, they could also earn 3 contribution points for a day. The contribution points earned in 10 days could allow them to read any middle-grade martial art for 6 hours. As for the disciples of the Starsabil Hall and the Botany Hall, they could only read for 4 hours after 10 days of work. The rest of the disciples were even worse. They could only read for 2 hours after 10 days of work. At this time, the difference in treatment between different posts was fully displayed. The new disciples were happy and sad. The disciples of the Drill Hall, Starsabil Hall, and Botany Hall all had bitter expressions. As for the disciples of the Starsabil Hall and Botany Hall, some of them were sighing and some of them were happy. Needless to say, the disciples of the Drill Hall were all very superior. Yi Qing's face revealed an extremely refreshing smile. His gaze swept past Yi Xing and Yi Feng with an expression of superiority. Hee hee. Yi Xing, I really didn't expect you to only have a 2-star Heaven's Mandate aptitude. Hee hee, you've been assigned to the pantry hall to fetch water. If this news were to spread to Qingye village, I wonder what the patriarch's reaction would be. Ha! Yi Qing's heart was very carefree. As he spoke, he couldn't help but laugh. Go fetch water every day. I want to see when you'll be able to cultivate to the 4th level of the martial Dao. You came to the main village to further your studies, but in the end, you'll be fetching water for 4 years. Ha! Yi Feng, who was standing to the side, was furious. Yi Xing, on the other hand, was not alarmed. Instead, he revealed a harmless smile and said, even if you're fetching water, I'll take care of you in a matter of minutes. You're just a defeated opponent, so what are you doing in front of me? Showing off your incompetence and weakness. Cursing people and exposing their shortcomings, hitting people in the face. As soon as Yi Xing spoke, he exposed Yi Qing's background and slapped the latter's face loudly. This caused Yi Qing's smile to freeze. His sense of superiority disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only humiliation and defeat. Yi Qing angrily said, the road ahead is still very long. You've only obtained a temporary victory. What does it count as? With your 2-star Heaven's Mandate aptitude, you can forget about stepping into the 4th level of the martial Dao in your lifetime. As for me, in the next few years, my cultivation will definitely step into the 5th level of the martial Dao. When we return to Qingye village, Yi Qing will be a martial artist of the 5th level of the martial Dao, and you, Yi Xing, will still be a martial disciple of the 3rd level of the martial Dao. Who's the real genius and who's the real trash? Who's the real genius? Lu Shuangling coldly said from the side. Some people obtained a fortuitous encounter and thought that they were the fish that leaped over the dragon gate. Their confidence swelled. Now they've finally been beaten down to the mundane world. Obtaining first place in the clan meeting at Qingye village really made them think of themselves as dragons. Turns out they're only 2-star heaven's mandate, just a stinking bug. Originally, Lu Shuangling still had a trace of hope. She wanted to get closer to Yi Xing and the main clan so that Yi Xing would change his mind. However, after knowing that Yi Xing was only a 2-star heaven's mandate and was assigned to fetch water in the cafeteria, she no longer had this thought. In her heart, Yi Xing became the same as before. He was just a piece of trash. At best, he was just a piece of trash with a relatively strong strength. What's the use of having a high battle talent? If you can't step into the threshold of a martial artist, you'll be stepped on by others in the end. It was rare for a 2-star heaven's mandate to reach the 3rd level of the martial Dao. Whether it was Yi Qing or Lu Shuangling, they had never heard of a martial artist before. Hee. Shuangling, let's go back together. Don't go with this piece of trash. He offended Elder Yi Weining. He definitely won't have a good time in the main clan for the next 4 years. Yi Qing saw that Lu Shuangling no longer liked Yi Xing and was overjoyed. He excitedly said to Lu Shuangling. Lu Shuangling pondered for a moment and nodded her head. Seeing that this pair of dog couple who looked down on him were about to get together again, Yi Xing laughed and said, Yi Qing, listen to me carefully. You don't have the qualifications to talk about the future in front of me. 3 days later, I'll step into the 4th level of the martial Dao. 1 month later, I'll defeat someone of the 5th level of the martial Dao and become an elite disciple. I'll enjoy the best treatment. In a year's time, I'll step into the 5th level of the martial Dao and become the #1 junior in Azure Sky City. This is my future. As for you, you've already been stepped on by me. In the future, you don't have the qualifications to compare with me. Yi Xing was extremely confident in his own future. However, in the years of Yi Qing and Lu Shuangling, it was a great irony. There were other new disciples who heard Yi Xing's words and treated it as a joke. They looked at Yi Xing with disdain. Yi Xing, it seems like you didn't sleep last night because you were too excited on your first day in the main clan. Hee. Today's daydream is not bad. Yi Qing let out a mocking laugh and left with Lu Shuangling. Brother Xing, I believe in you. You went from a piece of trash to a martial disciple of the 3rd level of the martial Dao and took first place in the clan gathering. This is already a miracle. I believe that you can continue to create miracles. Yi Feng clenched his fist and said excitedly. He was the only one who believed in Yi Xing. Yi Xing patted Yi Feng's shoulder and said, let's go back. Half of the day had passed and Yi Xing and Yi Feng went to work in the cafeteria. From tomorrow onwards, Yi Xing and Yi Feng returned to their respective rooms. Once back in his room, Yi Xing could not wait to start cultivating. The improved Xianqin skill allowed him to absorb the power of the stars at an extremely fast speed. All 10 meridians in his body were absorbing the power. If someone were to look at Yi Xing with their 3rd eye, they would definitely be shocked. The power of the stars being absorbed by Yi Xing was like a surging river. The amount was just too much. The clan courtyard was where the disciples of the clan resided. Today, they had all learned the new Xianqin skill. After returning, everyone took advantage of the time to cultivate while the memory was still fresh in their minds. The clan courtyard was very quiet and Yi Xing was not disturbed. This cultivation lasted until late at night. The power of the stars in Yixing's body was surging and the fourth ring in his dantian was gradually becoming clear. Yixing estimated that in less than 3 days, the fourth ring would be completely clear by tomorrow night and he would completely step into the fourth level of the martial Dao. Very good. After becoming a true martial artist, I will go to the martial pavilion to learn a lot of martial techniques. When I reach a certain level, I will be considered an expert among the younger generation of martial artists in Tiansang City. The time for me to rise in Tiansang City will not be long. Yixing thought happily in his heart. Late at night, he fell asleep. Early the next morning, Yixing and Yifeng went to the cafeteria together. Chapter 30. Yixing, you will be in charge of the canteen's daily water needs. 100,000 caddies a day. You must finish before sunset. Yifeng, you will be in charge of the canteen's daily firewood needs. 150,000 caddies a day. You must finish chopping before sunset. Yixing and Yifeng reported to the canteen. Yixing was led to the water storage room while Yifeng was led to the firewood storage courtyard. The canteen deacon assigned them their tasks. The disciples assigned to the canteen were not only Yixing and Yifeng. Some of the other disciples were assigned to the mountain to chop firewood, while others were assigned to light the fire. They were all tiring tasks. Other than Yixing and Yifeng, who were the main family disciples, the rest of the disciples assigned to the canteen were all disciples with different surnames. In the Ya family's main family, being assigned to the canteen was basically a good-for-nothing. This was because the canteen disciples had never produced an elder-level character before. Those who could become deacons of the main family were also extremely rare. The water storage room was very spacious. There were 2 huge pools in the room. Each pool could hold 100,000 caddies of water. The Yi family had a large population and the amount of water they consumed every day was astonishing. The water in one pool was only enough for the Yi family to consume for a day. Whenever the water in the first pool was used, the second pool would be filled to the brim. Whenever the water in the second pool was used, the first pool would be filled to the brim. Repeating this process, 100,000 caddies of water every day. Yixing stood in the middle of the water storage room. His gaze swept across the containers used to carry water and he chose a huge water tank. There was a note beside it stating that this water tank weighed 200 caddies and could hold 1,000 caddies of water. Yixing felt that the other buckets and small vats were too little and too troublesome to carry water back and forth. However, this large vats only needed to be filled 100 times to fill up the pool that could hold 100 kilograms of water. When Yixing first came to the Star Continent and occupied the body of the original owner, he was only about 1.65 meters tall. In the past month, Yixing had cultivated the perfect bone explosive fish to perfection. His body had also strengthened greatly and he had grown a lot taller. His current height was close to 1.8 meters. However, compared to the huge water tank that could hold 1,000 caddies of water, his body was still very frail. Yixing walked to the front of the huge water vat and lifted it up by one hand. The huge water vat was like a small bag in Yixing's hand. It didn't take him much effort to lift it. The place where the water was fetched was not far from the water storage room. It was only about 1 li away. Yixing carried the large water jar and walked as if he was flying. He arrived very quickly. Yixing grabbed the edge of the large water vat with one hand and the bottom of the vat with the other. He scooped some water into the vat and then bent his body. He held his breath and used all his strength to lift the vat. With a splash, the large water tank filled with water was dehydrated in an instant. Yixing lifted it up and carried it on his shoulder. 1,000 caddies of water, a 200 caddies tank. Even if the water tank wasn't 100% full, it wasn't empty either. The weight of the water and the tank added together was at least 1,100 caddies. An ordinary third-stage martial artist wouldn't feel good carrying 1,100 caddies of water. It would be even more difficult for them to walk. However, Yixing carried the large water tank and walked with big strides like the wind. Soon, Yixing returned to the water storage room and poured the water into the pool. His face wasn't red and he wasn't out of breath. He carried the large water tank and walked as if he was flying as he went to fetch more water. Yixing carried the large water tank back and forth. On the way, many Yi clan members saw him carry the large water tank back and forth. They didn't find it strange. There was once a group of people carrying water in the canteen who used this method to fetch water. However, what they didn't know was that the people who used this method to fetch water were all martial artists who had reached the fourth stage of the martial path. If it was a martial disciple, they would obediently use a bucket to fetch water. Although Yixing's strength was great and he could carry the large water tank once or twice without any problem, after 5 or 6 times, he was still a bit out of breath and felt a bit of pressure. When Yixing fetched the 10th tank of water, his breathing was already a bit hurried. He met with a group of youths. They were the new disciples of the martial arts hall. Every morning, they would have the same training and then they would have free time. In the morning, they had to run 10 laps around the Yi clan's residence. There was a part of the route that just happened to cross the path that Yixing took to fetch water. Now, they just happened to meet. Look, isn't that a 2-star trash? Haha, he's fetching water. A mocking voice came from the group. It was Yi Baiyuan. He always refuses to admit that he's a good-for-nothing. He thinks that he's a genius just because he shined during the strength test. However, isn't carrying water the job of a good-for-nothing? Ha! Senior Baiyuan is right. Senior Baiyuan, compared to you, he's obviously trash. As soon as Yi Baiyuan's voice fell, the voices of many youths echoed. Yixing even heard Yiqing's voice among them. The group of youths was in the middle of a long-distance run. Their speed was not slow, and they ran over in the blink of an eye. Yixing carried the large water tank. His expression did not change, but he was already angry at Yi Baiyuan in his heart. He and Yi Baiyuan didn't have any interactions. It could be said that they minded their own business. However, Yi Baiyuan repeatedly insulted him. Yixing had a plan in his heart. If there was a chance, he would definitely teach Yi Baiyuan a lesson. The disciples of the martial arts hall only ran 10 laps around the Yi clan. The chances of them meeting Yixing while fetching water was very low. After a few more rounds of fetching water, Yixing didn't meet them again. However, as the number of times he fetched water increased, Yixing felt more and more pressure. It was as if the water tank on his shoulder was getting heavier and heavier. Carrying a large tank of water while walking, not only was he gasping for breath, even the muscles in his entire body were aching. Especially the muscles in his legs and arms, the feeling was the most intense. On the 20th round of fetching water, Yixing carried the large water tank and walked less than half of the distance. He was completely unable to take another step. His legs felt as if they were filled with lead. Yixing knew that this time it would be very strenuous. However, he didn't expect that it would be to the extent where his legs couldn't take another step. Now that he was carrying a large tank of water, it wasn't easy to put it down and his legs felt as if they were filled with lead. This caused him to fall into a dilemma. Being stuck in a deadlock halfway wasn't a solution. Yixing carried the large water tank and stood in the same place. He tried to operate the Xianqing technique. In an instant, the surging power of the stars was absorbed by the 10 meridians and transported to all parts of his body. Yixing felt that the soreness and exhaustion in his body suddenly lessened by a lot. Moreover, what surprised Yixing was that his body at this moment was like a starving beggar who had seen a large amount of delicious food. It was madly absorbing the power of the stars at a much faster speed than normal. It was more than twice as fast. When the body is tired, the body's muscle energy will be greatly consumed. At this time, it is urgently needed to replenish energy. Therefore, the speed of absorbing the power of the stars is faster than normal. Doesn't that mean that if I cultivate in this state, my cultivation speed will be greatly increased? Yixing's superbrain spun, and he immediately understood. If I cultivate while working and cultivate faster, then I don't need to wait until tonight. Today, my cultivation can break through to the fourth stage of the martial path. Thinking that the time to break through to the fourth stage of the martial path was brought forward, Yixing was overjoyed. After standing in the same place and cultivating for a while, Yixing felt that the soreness and exhaustion had almost disappeared by 80 to 90%. At the same time, the speed of his body absorbing the power of the stars had also decreased. It was no different from normal. It seems that only when the body is extremely tired can it maintain a fast cultivation speed. Since that's the case, then I will carry the water tank and cultivate at the same time. I will always keep my body in a state of exhaustion but not falling down. Yixing thought to himself. He carried the large water tank and continued to walk forward. Normal people had to be focused when doing things. They could not be distracted. For example, when cultivating Xianqin, they had to be quiet and not be disturbed. When walking with the water tank, they could only walk with the water tank. They could not do anything else. If they forced themselves to do two things at the same time, it was very likely that problems would occur. For example, the cultivation of Xianqin would be messed up, and they would fall down while carrying the water tank. However, for Yixing, who had the super brain, multitasking was not a problem at all. As long as he wanted to, he could even multitask. The super brain was so powerful that it could allow Yixing to multitask and focus on two things at the same time. For example, when Yixing carried the water tank and walked, his cultivation of Xianqin was under the control of the super brain. There was not a single mistake. After walking for a while, Yixing felt that he was not tired enough, so he decided to just run. As expected, running while carrying something that weighed more than 500 kilograms was much more difficult than walking. Yixing did not run for long before he panted heavily. All the muscles in his body, especially the muscles in his legs, were extremely sore. At that moment, Yixing's cultivation speed of Xianqin was much faster than usual. It was at its fastest speed. His body kept absorbing the power of the stars, and it slightly reduced the soreness and fatigue in his body. However, when Yixing carried the water tank and ran, it quickly made the soreness and fatigue in his body worse. Just like that, he fell into a cycle. Yixing's cultivation speed of Xianqin did not decrease at all. The only thing that was tested was Yixing's willpower. His legs did not reach the point where they could not move, as if they were filled with lead. However, with every step he took, he would feel an intense soreness. A normal person would definitely not be able to endure it. However, Yixing gritted his teeth. His running speed did not decrease at all. I want to become a warrior saint. I want to become a peerless elite. I want to become a man above all others. A king among kings. Yixing shouted in his heart. A person who had an ideal and persisted in it was terrifying. Their willpower was indestructible. Yixing was such a person. 21st time. 22nd time. 21st time, Yixing did not rest. He carried a full tank of water time and time again. He ran back to the water storage room and poured the water into the pool. At the same time, his cultivation base rose at an alarming rate every time he fetched water. The fourth ring in his dantian gradually grew clearer and clearer. 91st time, Yixing was still running while carrying a full tank of water. His cultivation had also reached the most critical juncture. At a certain moment, the fourth star ring finally changed from its dim and hazy state. It released its first ray of starlight and became clear. The fourth star ring was completely clear. Yixing's cultivation had taken an important step. He had entered the fourth stage of the martial Dao and become a true martial artist. Chapter 31. After breaking through to the fourth stage of the martial path, Yixing's soreness and tiredness were all swept away. What replaced it was a smoothness. It was as if a shackle had been unlocked in the Xianqing technique's 10 meridians, producing a dense inner strength. When Yixing was at the peak of the third stage of the martial path, he had already cultivated inner strength in his meridians. However, the amount was very small, as if it was suppressed by an invisible door. This invisible door couldn't be opened, so the inner strength could only be maintained at a low level and couldn't be cultivated anymore. That invisible door was the suppression of cultivation. Because Yixing's cultivation hadn't stepped into the fourth stage of the martial path, he wasn't a true martial artist yet. Now that his cultivation had broken through, the suppression of cultivation naturally didn't exist anymore. And Yixing had cultivated 10 meridians. Compared to a martial artist who cultivated the normal Xianqing technique who only had 6 meridians, Yixing produced a lot more inner strength. Therefore, when Yixing stepped into the fourth stage of the martial path, he felt that the inner strength in his body was very dense. Even a martial artist in the middle stage of the fourth stage of the martial path might not have as much inner strength as Yixing, who had just entered the fourth stage of the martial path. This was Yixing's biggest advantage. Moreover, regardless of the density of the inner strength, just the quality of the inner strength was much stronger than a martial artist who cultivated the normal Xianqing technique. This was because after Yixing's Xianqing technique was strengthened by the super brain, it was a high-grade technique, while the normal Xianqing technique was a middle-grade technique. The quality of the inner strength produced by different grades of techniques was also different. The higher the grade of the technique, the higher the quality of the inner strength produced. Yixing's heart was filled with great joy. This was only the third day of his arrival at the Azure Sky City's main clan, and he had already stepped into the fourth stage of the martial path, becoming a true martial artist. This greatly exceeded his expectations. After becoming a fourth stage martial artist, he had the qualifications to enter the martial pavilion to learn martial arts. The martial pavilion was the place he wanted to go the most. 92nd time. 93rd time. 94th time. After Yixing stepped into the fourth stage of the martial path, he was still running back and forth to fetch water. Moreover, he had been cultivating the Xianqing technique. Although the effect was much worse than before, it was still faster than usual. 99th time, 100th time. 101st time. Because the water tank wasn't filled every time. Yixing, Yi was filled to the breast. He was 100 and 100 and 100 and 100 and 100 times. Only when he filled the entire pool did he put the tank back. Even though he ran all the way and filled the entire pool with water, because of the breakthrough in his cultivation and the cultivation of the Xianqing method, the power of the stars nourished his body, so he was not very tired. Yixing sat on the spot and cultivated the Xianqing technique for a while. Very quickly, all his exhaustion disappeared. He was in high spirits, filled with energy like a ferocious tiger that had been released from its cage. The speed of running back and forth to fetch water is indeed fast. Originally, I would have needed close to a day to finish this pool. In the end, it's not even noon and I'm already done. I can now go to the martial pavilion to learn martial arts. Hee hee. Once I cultivate martial arts, with the powerful super brain, I will definitely be able to cultivate martial arts to a very high level. At that time, even if it's a 5th stage martial artist, what will I have to fear? Yixing stood up with a cheerful smile on his face and left the water storage room. He didn't go straight to the martial pavilion. Instead, he went to the firewood yard first. The firewood yard wasn't far from here. He first went to take a look at Yifeng. Cafeteria, firewood yard. Yifeng's mouth was stained with blood. He had a painful expression on his face as he was stepped on by a 15 to 16-year-old youth. On the side, there were 3 other youths watching. Of the 3 youths, Yifeng recognized 2 of them. One was Yi Qing and the other was Yi Baiyuan. They were both new disciples of the martial hall. Yifeng also recognized the youth who was stepping on his chest. He was the only 6-star Destiny Realm genius in this batch of new disciples. He was accepted as a personal disciple by Elder Yi Weining on the spot, Yi Man. Senior brother Yi Man is indeed worthy of being a 6-star Destiny Realm cultivator. It's only been 3 days since you arrived at the main clan and your cultivation has already reached the peak of the 4th stage. Beating this little trash is like stepping on an ant. Impressive. Yi Baiyuan smiled as he bowed to Yi Man and gave him a thumbs up. In the martial arts hall, Yi Baiyuan was an extraordinary genius disciple. Among the new disciples, there were many who bowed and flattered in front of him. However, in front of Yi Man, he could only bow and lower his head to flatter Yi Man. As Elder Weining's personal disciple, senior brother Yi Man is naturally extraordinary. Not to mention this little trash, even Yi Xing would have to crawl in front of senior brother Yi Man. The youth that Yifeng didn't recognize said. This youth had a slender figure and was a disciple of the main clan. However, his status wasn't high. Although Yi Man was a branch disciple, he was Yi Weining's personal disciple. Therefore, he was willing to lower himself and be Yi Man's underling. Yi Qing didn't say anything, but he didn't stop them either. Bah! Although Yifeng was being stepped on by Yi Man, blood was flowing out of his mouth, and he was heavily injured, his expression was firm and unyielding. He shouted with a tough tone, "You think you can compare to my brother Xing? In front of brother Xing, you're just shit. Once brother Xing makes a move, you 4 piles of shit will be trampled into pieces. You're courting death." Yi Man was furious. His leg was like the wind as he kicked the ground and sent Yifeng flying. Yifeng screamed and spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was kicked more than 10 meters away and heavily hit the wall before falling to the ground. The intense pain caused Yifeng's body to twist and writhe as he continued to scream. "You piece of trash, how dare you call me shit?" Yi Man roared and waved his hand, "Beat him. Beat him to death. Beat the shit out of him for me." When Yi Xing arrived at the firewood yard, he heard a scream from inside. Then, he heard Yi Man's angry roar. Yi Xing's expression changed. He quickened his pace and rushed into the firewood yard. The scene inside made Yi Xing's eyes pop out of their sockets. A youth stood in the yard and 3 other youths were using their feet to beat Yifeng, who was hugging his head and curling his body under the wall. Yi Xing was furious. "All of you, stop!" Yi Xing roared. There was nothing to say. The superbrain activated its scanning mode and rushed forward. Yi Xing was furious. The consequences would be severe. Yi Xing. When Yi Man saw Yi Xing, his eyes lit up with joy. He shouted, "I was just about to teach you a lesson when you delivered yourself to me. Hee hee." As he spoke, Yi Man swung his big fist and punched Yi Xing. Yi Man's body was strong like an iron tower. He didn't cultivate any body refining techniques, but he was born with godly strength. Even if he only used the most basic fist technique of the low-grade martial arts, his terrifying strength coupled with his inner strength at the peak of the 4th stage of the martial path was enough to make any martial artist at the 4th stage of the martial path retreat. However, Yi Xing didn't retreat. The sound of bones cracking came from his body. He also swung his fist and punched. One was born with godly strength. The other had refined all 206 bones in his body. They were all people with great strength, and their inner force was very profound. Bang! The 2 fists collided. Two terrifying forces collided and made a loud sound. At this moment, the three people who were ganging up on Yifeng had already stopped and looked over. They were all stunned. Yi Man was even more shocked. Yixing actually took his punch head-on and didn't even take half a step back. Yixing's strength was so strong that he wasn't any weaker than Yi Man, who had a natural godly body and was at the peak of the fourth stage of the martial path. Yi Man was shocked, but Yixing wasn't surprised at all. He continued to attack like lightning and punched again. After seeing Yixing's strength, Yi Man didn't dare to underestimate him anymore. He waved his fist to block, but unexpectedly, Yixing's fist was only halfway out when he suddenly stopped and changed his move. His body slanted, and another fist swept out like lightning. Yi Man's block missed. At the same time, he suddenly kicked Yixing unexpectedly. Yixing dodged and his attack missed. At this time, Yi Man stood on one leg and couldn't withdraw his move. It was even harder to dodge. Yixing's punch landed on his face. Yixing was angry and didn't show any mercy. The power of this punch was terrifying. It broke a row of Yi Man's teeth. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his body fell to the side. Before Yi Man fell to the ground, his body suddenly stopped. Yixing grabbed his arm. Bang! Bang bang bang, then, a second punch, a third punch, a fourth punch. Yi Man's face was continuously smashed. Yi Man's face was lacerated and blood flowed. His head was hit repeatedly. Even if he was born with godly strength and a strong body, he was still dizzy. Yixing threw 7 or 8 punches. Finally, he grabbed Yi Man's arm and pulled it up. He kicked Yi Man's abdomen and sent him flying. He let out a shrill scream and flew more than 10 meters away. Senior brother Yi Man. The other three were shocked. They exclaimed and ran toward Yi Man. The three of you can't escape. Yixing glanced at Yiqing, who was struggling to get up. The bones in his body cracked and he rushed toward Yiqing and the other two. Junior brothers, block Yixing. I'll go find reinforcements. When the slender youth saw that Yi Man was easily defeated by Yixing, his face was filled with shock. His body leaped up like a swallow, and his qing gong was actually quite good. He directly jumped over the wall and escaped. Yi Qing and Yi Baiyuan didn't have this kind of qing gong. When they saw Yixing rushing toward them, they could only assume a fighting stance and fight with Yixing. Although Yi Baiyuan had always verbally humiliated Yixing, when he really faced Yixing, there was a sense of fear in his heart. Especially when he personally witnessed Yixing beating Yi Man until he was looking for his teeth on the ground, he was even more fearful. As for Yi Qing, needless to say, he had lost to Yixing before. He was instinctively afraid of Yixing's strength. Facing Yixing, Yi Qing and Yi Baiyuan were afraid. Their strength was greatly reduced. How could they be a match for Yixing, who had already stepped into the fourth stage of the martial path? In less than 3 moves, Yi Baiyuan was kicked in the chest by Yixing. He was knocked out of breath and flew more than 10 meters away while screaming in pain. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.